Just putting you on notice. Bye-bye. Can I do it? Yeah. Okay. It might be easier to use.
Oh, no.
There are people in the waiting room, and I don't know why.
Because they can go. She can watch it. Do you want me to go in there and find out who they are?
No.
Okay.
It's the accordion side.
Keeping it in the bag. Has nothing to do with you.
Oh, come on now.
One second.
Yes, ma'am.
Coming in.
I'm always convinced that I've just made a wrong notation or something.
Did you look at your ROA?
I did, like 3 times already this morning. And I'm trying to figure out who this person is whose audio isn't connecting. So I never did go over on Friday.
Oh, no.
But my sisters are coming over on Monday. Oh, no, on this Friday. They're coming this Friday.
And you're gonna walk over, maybe they can help you take whatever.
There's nothing to take. They just want to see it.
I'm just.
And once we start moving, I don't
Okay.
want to have people in the back of the house, unnecessarily.
Oh, that'll be, oh, you're gonna go to lunch or something?
I don't know. That wasn't the conversation. Yeah, this iPhone, the video, their audio's not connected. I'm gonna put them out again and then I'm not gonna keep checking.
You can't.
No, that's the job.
Sharon, do you want to look at the physical, like, I know I told you, but do you want to look at the physical exhibits that I have?
Yeah.
Maybe that face is finished.
And then there's this living doorbell. And this is his statement of convictions to put it.
Okay,
That's the one.
okay. Report. And 911 call. So, here you go.
Can I use this ledge jack here as overflow? Sorry. Oh. So I was gonna ask you about that. So it depends on how the court wants me to do it. I have a 911 call and then with sound,
You want to see?
the Ring doorbell does not have sound. Those are the only 2 DVDs that I've been. Historically, I've just played them on my computer, but it, however,
Pardon me, Judge, a DVD with strictly audio, is it right she uses the computer?
Are you gonna be able to pick it up, Mary Ann?
If it's close to a microphone.
do you want me to, I can just bend it?
Yep.
Do you want me to do a test before we go on the record to make sure you can hear it?
I'm picking your voice up here, so it's good.
And then the second one is strictly just video?
Just video.
And usually you just use your laptop?
So
On
that
the-
one, I've either used my laptop, I've provided it to the court, to the court's computer, or I've hooked it up
Okay.
through,
On the video, you want us to get Fred in here for that, Judge?
Okay.
So let Fred know we do have one DVD.
it's a
Okay,
one,
can you?
a 1 minute.
So.
Do you want me to
This is
co-
our
okay.
copy from our
Yes.
binder.
Do you all need more time to get
I
ready?
don't want to use yours, right? Just bring it in.
Hello,
Oh, okay.
hello? Do you all need more time to get ready?
No, I'm ready.
Okay. I haven't called the case because you all are still rifling through papers and stuff. And when you're ready, I'm ready. Thank you.
Make sure phones are off.
Oh, you know, he went to get Fred.
Yeah, I guess Fred might be able to do this,
That video is not until, it's like the last witness, so.
Okay. if Fred can do it quietly, I'll let him know. If not, I'll tell him to just wait then. Is that
Fred can
okay?
do it quietly. I've been on the receiving end, Fred. 201447 FY, State of Michigan versus Raymond Lee Bailey. This matter is scheduled for preliminary exam this morning. Appearances, please.
Good morning, Honor Chair Hendelang, on behalf of the people, P78685.
It pleases Honorable Court, Sharon Clark Woodside appearing on behalf of Mr. Raymond Bailey. Bar number is 41295.
Morning. Are the parties ready for preliminary exam this morning?
Yes, Judge,
Yes, Your Honor, we move to suppress the witnesses.
join in that.
Witnesses will be sequestered. If there's anyone who is scheduled to give testimony this morning who is either in the court's Zoom courtroom or watching on YouTube, please cease watching these proceedings at this time. Are there any other preliminary matters?
Judge, could the court please also indicate that anyone who may be watching on YouTube could potentially be precluded from testifying at trial if they are a witness in this matter in any way, shape, or form? I've admonished people's witnesses to the extent that I know of them, but just to be sure.
As indicated by the prosecutor, there's even the potential that anyone, either in the court's Zoom courtroom or watching on YouTube, if there's a potential that you will be called as a witness, please cease watching these proceedings this morning, listening to these proceedings this morning, or you may be precluded from testifying at a future hearing. Anything else on behalf of the people?
Secondarily, Judge, I did file 2 weeks ago a 768.27B notice pertaining to prior acts of domestic violence between the parties. And I provided a copy to Ms. Woodside as well. There are one, potentially 2 witnesses who may testify about a prior incident of domestic violence involving the defendant and one of the deceased victims. I believe that those other acts would come in under the statute as I laid out in my notice. So just putting that on the record.
The court did receive that notice of intent to introduce other acts under 768.27B. Ms. Woodside, did you have a response?
I am a receipt of the notice. I have read the reports. I am prepared to cross-examine on those.
Thank you. Anything else on behalf of the people?
Not at this time.
Anything else on behalf of the defendant?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
People's first witness. Oh, before you call your first witness, are you expecting a Lieutenant Gannon?
Not expecting, but is on the witness list.
There is a Lieutenant Gannon in the court's waiting room, court's virtual waiting room. That's just by way of information.
I'd ask the officer in charge to indicate to that witness to get out of the court's waiting room.
Thank you. Your first witness, ma'am.
The people called Chris Shepherd.
Bless you.
Hey, you gotta get off of YouTube because you're chain of custody.
He's gone.
Well, they don't even want you on.
Shepherd.
Not dispatcher.
Right?
function 911.
You want to step out?
Just want you to step on here.
Ma'am, before you come up this incline, I want you to stop right here, right at this counter. Come closer, please. Spell your first and your last name, please.
Christine Shepherd, Kristine Shepherd, SHEPHERD.
You're gonna come up this little ramp, but please be careful. You're gonna stop here with me, raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Thank you much. You may have a seat. Ma'am,
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Could you please state your name for the record?
Christine Shepherd,
And Ms. Shepherd, how are you employed?
for Township dispatch.
And what does that mean?
I'm a dispatcher for
Okay. And so as part of your job, what do you do?
Take 911 calls
Okay. And you said Huron. Do you dispatch for any other cities?
for Sumter Township.
Okay.
I'm sorry, ma'am. 1 second.
Can you move closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you dispatch for any other cities?
For Sumter Township.
Okay. And I want to direct your attention back to August 15th of 2020. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
And were you working as a dispatcher?
Yes.
Dispatching for Sumter Township?
Yes.
Do you recall a 911 call coming in on that day?
Yes, I do.
Around what time?
12:32.
And
I'm sorry, Judge, I'm having a hard time hearing Ms.
Can I
Shepherd.
take this off?
Thank you.
is it the court's preference, I'm sorry, to have witnesses leave masks on for testimony?
The issue is that, the numbers in Wayne County have continued to fluctuate, and what I've typically asked witnesses to do is to keep their voices up as much as possible, only because my staff is here and just trying to be mindful of the fact that we have strangers in the building, essentially.
Thank you. So just keep your voice up as loud as you can.
But if Ms. Woodside, if you continue to have issue, we might have to make some adjustment.
Yeah, I'm straining to hear.
Okay.
Her voice is just soft.
Pretend like you're talking to the person all the way in the back room under the clock, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so was this 911 call unique?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Tell us about it. What happened?
Objection to
That's-
the 911 call, unique, don't understand what the prosecutor is asking about unique as it relates to this call or distinguished from any other call.
And that was my next question that I was in the middle of asking. As to what made it unique.
Objections overruled.
What made the call unique?
I just heard a lot of yelling, a lot of loud noise, and then nothing.
Okay, and when you say nothing,
Silence.
okay. Have you had an opportunity to listen to that call?
Yes, I have.
And is it your voice on the call that can be heard?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the call that you previously listened to, is it a fair and accurate copy of the call that you received at 12:32 on August 15th,
Yes.
2020?
Yes, it is.
Judge, I've pre-marked for identification as People's Proposed Exhibit 5, a disc containing the 911 call. At this time, I'd ask to play, and then at the conclusion, I'll continue with the foundational questions prior to asking to admit.
Ms. Woodside, you've already received a copy of this.
I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Where is your emergency?
Ms. Shepherd, is that your voice that can be heard on the call?
Yes,
And that's the same call that you previously testified about?
yes,
And that's a fair and accurate copy?
yes.
At this time, the people move to admit People's Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Your Honor, but I have an opportunity to cross-examine before it's admitted.
Would you have an opportunity to cross-examine the witness?
Before it's admitted. Before the exhibit is admitted, I wanted to ask a couple of questions before it's admitted.
It's a little of an unusual request, isn't it, Ms. Woodside?
Well, no, not to me, Judge, but sometimes I do unusual things, but
I'm gonna deny your request,
Okay.
and the people's exhibit number, proposed exhibit number 5 will be admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd, do you recall the number that this phone call came from?
734-787-7227.
And after you received that call, what did you do next?
After the call went silent, I called the number back.
And what happened next?
I didn't get any response.
What's the next thing that you did?
I took another 911 hang up unrelated to that.
Okay,
So I followed through with that call
okay,
while I was searching the phone number from the first call.
okay. And so you're telling us you did a search. And when you say a search, what do you mean a search?
We have a tool called Rapid SOS. We can enter a phone number that has dialed 911 into Rapid SOS, and it should tell you a location of where that number called from.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to receive a location?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and what did you do with that information?
I started building a run for the officers.
Okay. And what did you do next?
I searched the phone number in Clear to see if I could find out who the number came back to.
You mentioned Clear. What is Clear?
It's a tool on Clemens.
Okay. And what type of information does that tool provide?
I'm sorry, Ms. Shepherd, could you keep your voice up for me, please?
Clear provides any information if any officer has had contact with that person, the database.
Okay.
So I could see who the phone number registered to.
Okay. And who did the phone number register to?
Neil Sampson.
After you discovered that information, what did you do with it?
I ran Neil Sampson, did a search on him just to get some background information to give to the officers, and then dispatch the officers to that address that came up on Rapid SOS.
Okay. And do you recall the address that came up on Rapid SOS?
I don't recall the address.
Would it refresh your recollection if you, well, let me back up. As part of your job, do you enter a bunch of things into a computer?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that commonly called a CAD sheet?
Yes, it is.
If you referred to your CAD sheet, would that help you refresh your recollection as to the address that
Yes.
came up on Rapid SOS?
Mhm.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm gonna hand you this. Just take a look at it and tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
It does.
And what was the address?
24914 Martinsville,
And what city was that in, or township?
Sumter Township.
Is that in Wayne County?
Yes, it is.
And did you relay that information to police officers?
Yes.
I have nothing else.
Thank you. Ms. Woodside?
I did have a couple of questions. Ms. Shepherd, you said that this particular 911 call was unique. Is that right?
Yes,
And why are you saying it's unique?
because there was a lot of screaming, or I heard screaming and yelling and then nothing.
Okay, you've never, since you've been a dispatcher, had a 911 call where the call started out with screaming
No, yes, I have.
and yelling,
Mhm.
and then
I'm sorry, you have to say yes or no.
Yes,
and then the call hangs up.
no,
Okay, so in every other call you've had, you heard screaming, yelling, and then something else that preceded that, or came after that. Is that right?
right,
And then eventually the call ends. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. Now, besides your voice, you don't know the other voices, do you? Is that a no, ma'am? Because you're shaking your
Yes,
head.
no.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Anything further for the people?
Nothing based on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd, you may step down. Thank you for coming in today.
Next, the people call Officer Hudson. Detective Toth, the officer in charge, is going to retrieve him from the parking lot.
I'm sorry, I saw Fred come in. Did you tell him to come back as we get closer to the end, or what's going on?
He told Jamie how to do it.
Wonderful.
is on standby.
As long as Officer Garcia knows how to do it.
You explained it, so we'll try it. Prosecutor, do you have an HDMI port on your,
Port?
Yeah.
Yes.
like, okay.
I also have an
that's-
HDMI cord.
We got that, all we need to make sure is we got a port on there, we'll plug it in.
What's Hudson's first name? What's his first name?
Your Honor, if I may. Good
Yes,
morning. My name's Carly Cox. I'm also an assistant prosecutor, and APA Handling is going to let me do this witness. If you'd like me to put my name and number on the record.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good morning again, Your Honor. Carly Cox on behalf of the people, P81911.
Could you spell your name, please?
Surely, it's C as in Charlie, ARLEY, last name K as in kite, O, C as in Charlie, K as in kite, S as in Sam.
First and last name, would you spell it for her, please?
Sean, S-E-A-N, Hudson, H-U-D-S-O-N.
Yeah, come up this little ramp, be careful, watch your step. Stop right here with me. You swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. May I have a seat right here? Please keep your voice up. Thank you.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you just please state your name for the record one more time?
Sean Hudson.
And Mr. Hudson, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Sumter Township Police Department.
And what's your rank?
I'm an officer.
Officer Hudson, what are your duties as an officer for the Sumter Township Police Department?
I'm currently assigned to the patrol division. I respond to calls for service, conduct traffic enforcement, along with community outreach programs.
So when you respond to a call for service, is that something that's also referred to as a dispatch?
It is.
Could you just briefly explain what that is?
A dispatch is when a 911 call comes into the dispatch center, the dispatcher sends the run to my computer along with informs me over the computer, and I go to the address they provided.
And when you receive a dispatch, is it just assigned randomly to you, or do you get to pick and choose which assignment you go to?
There's a run rotation, so we work with 2 or 3 officers. One officer takes the first call, the second officer takes the second call. If we're working with the third officer takes the third call, and then it switches back to the first officer.
Great. I'm going to take your attention to August 15th of 2020. Do you remember that date?
I do.
Were you working in the same capacity as a police officer for Sumter Township on that day?
I was.
Were you dispatched to a location that afternoon?
I was.
About what time?
About 12:30 in the afternoon.
And when you were dispatched, are you in like a fully marked vehicle?
I am.
Are you fully uniformed as well?
I am displaying my badge at office.
When you're dispatched, is your body cam activated?
It is.
Were you wearing a body cam that day?
I was.
Do you remember what address that you were dispatched to?
I have to refer to my notes for the direct address.
Yes, if that would help refresh your recollection.
It was 24914 Martinsville Road in Sumter Township.
Thank you. When you arrived there, were you alone or with a partner?
At that time, I was alone.
When you say at that time were you alone, were you later joined by someone else?
I was.
Could you describe what was at that location at 24914 Martinsville Road?
It's a single-family residence with a vehicle parked in the driveway.
When you arrived there, where do you park?
I parked on the roadway.
Is that standard protocol for your department?
It depends what officer. It just depends on the officer's discretion.
Did you approach the residence?
I did.
What happened when you approached the residence?
I went to the front door. I knocked twice.
What, in your experience, do you do after you knock twice?
I walk around to a residence in this case. Walk around the residence, make sure everything's secure and okay.
And let me ask you this, when you knocked twice, did you receive any sort of answer or response?
I did not.
Is that why you walked around then?
Correct.
What happened when you walked around?
I observed the black Ford Taurus parked in a driveway. I conducted a license plate inquiry of the vehicle
How did you conduct that license plate inquiry?
via radio to my dispatcher.
And did you learn who that vehicle was registered to?
It was registered to Raymond Bailey.
What happened after you learned that information?
I walked to the car, observed the car empty, and as I turned towards the back of the residence, I observed a single female laying on the back deck of the residence.
What happened after you saw that female laying there?
I observed blood coming from the side of her head along with the forearm. I also observed empty shell casings on the deck near the female, along with the extended gun magazine to the east of her body.
And is there any sort of protocol that you follow then after you see those things?
There's no protocol. What I did for my safety, I backed up. I radioed to my dispatcher to expedite or hurry up my backing unit. And I also requested an additional unit.
Where do you go then after that?
I went back to my vehicle to obtain my patrol rifle from my vehicle due to the circumstances. And then I held the property until on the northeast side of the roadway.
What does it mean that you held the property?
I stayed there till it was secure, make sure I had eyes on the residence so no one would exit the residence.
And when you say secure, is that when you say that no one enters or exits the residence?
Correct,
Okay. Is there a point in time then where someone joins you from your department?
correct. Sergeant Eager joined right at the residence.
Do you advise her of what's going on at that point in time?
I did.
Was she already en route, if you know, when the dispatch came in?
From my understanding, she was.
What happened after you advised her what was going on?
We waited for our third unit to arrive on scene.
Who was your third unit?
It was K9 Officer Hickman from the Huron Township Police Department.
So with K9, that he has a dog. What
Correct.
happens after they arrive?
We already approached the residence to the rear. We went to the back door of the residence.
And then what, if anything, do you observe then?
I still observed the female down. I made 2 call outs to any subjects that may be in the residence. Subject, please make yourself known.
Did you get any response when you did that?
I did not.
What happened after that?
K9 Officer Hickman made 3 additional call outs advising he had a dog and if he made an entry, anybody could be bit and injured.
At that point in time, did you receive any response?
We did not.
What happened after that?
K9 Officer Hickman entered the residence first with me behind him. As soon as we entered the residence, we observed a second female in the doorway of the rear door, laying face up, down with 2 gunshots to her head.
After you observed that, do you continue entering into the home?
We do.
Where do you go?
The back doorway opened up to the kitchen. We cleared the kitchen, make sure there's no subjects in the kitchen. From the kitchen, we go into the living room, which was an open concept from the kitchen into the living room. We observed a male subject on the couch with his upper body slumped over to his right with additional gunshots to him.
When you're seeing these individuals with gunshot wounds, are you checking them or touching them in any way to see what their status is?
No, our main objective right there is to clear the residence to make sure it's secure for any subjects inside the residence.
Did you continue entry until you went into the living room?
We did. We
Where did
went
you
into
go?
the hallway from the living room.
Did you observe anything there?
We observed a second male subject laying face up with gunshots wounds to him with the TV covering his body from his waist down.
And did you continue into the residence after you observed him?
We did.
Was the residence cleared at any point then?
Correct. The 3 bedrooms and a single bathroom in the residence were clear of any subjects.
You said that there was a TV on the 4th individual. What, if anything, did you do with that?
I moved it so I could continue clearing the residence in a safe manner.
Is that standard protocol and procedure for your
Since it
department?
was blocking the hallway where you can get around it without tripping, yes,
Other than that, did you touch his body in any way?
I did not.
After the residence cleared, what do you do?
I went back out. I conducted a secondary search of the residence, looking underneath beds in the closets, behind doors of the residence to ensure no subjects are hiding.
Are you looking for any weapons or firearms at that point in time?
I was.
Did you find anything?
I did not.
After you do that secondary clearance, what happens?
I went out to the back of the residence to clear a shed on the property.
Where was the shed located on the property?
It was in the backyard on the northwest side of the property.
Did you do that by yourself or with another officer?
with Canine Officer Hickman.
What, if anything, did you find in the shed?
We did not find any subjects.
After you don't find any subjects in that location, what's your next step in your investigation?
I requested our one paramedic to enter the scene to check the vital signs of any subject that might be, to check the vital signs of the subjects down inside the residence and outside the residence.
Did the paramedics come?
They did.
Did they enter the residence?
They did.
Did they check all 4 bodies?
They did.
What happens after they check all 4 bodies?
They advised that there was no pulse on any subjects.
Do they stay on scene?
I believe they cleared.
And
the
that,
scene.
and what does that mean?
They just left the scene.
Okay. So when this happens, does any other individual enter the residence?
I believe Sergeant Eager entered the residence.
After the paramedics leave, what's your next assignment or role at the scene?
To secure the scene, to make sure no subjects enter in or out of the scene.
Earlier, you mentioned that the vehicle in the driveway was registered to a Raymond Bailey,
Correct.
correct? Did you recognize that name at that time?
Not at that time, I did not recognize the name.
Was there a point in time when you did recognize that name?
I did.
How did that come about?
Sergeant Eager asked me if
Objection, Your Honor, to what someone else is saying or asking. That's hearsay.
Sustained.
Was there a point in time, officer, when there was some sort of conversation regarding Raymond Bailey?
there was.
Had you ever been to that Martinsville location before?
I had,
In what kind of capacity?
as an officer, responded to a domestic violence report.
Who did that domestic violence report involve?
Raymond Bailey and Laura Tanner.
Is Raymond Bailey in the courtroom today?
He is.
Could you please point to him and tell the court what color shirt he's wearing?
He's wearing a green shirt.
Your Honor, would the record please reflect that the witness has pointed to and identified the defendant in this case?
It will reflect.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you're at the scene, do you receive any other sort of information about continued investigation?
I did. I was given several directions on scene.
What sort of directions were you given?
At first, I was given direction to go house to house looking for surveillance cameras.
And surveillance cameras, are we talking about regular surveillance cameras, Ring doorbells, or something else?
Any surveillance camera, ring doorbell, any security cameras on any houses.
Did you find any during your search?
I did not.
What did you do after you went door to door trying to find cameras?
I was advised by Sergeant Eager that the cell phone that was used.
Objection, Your Honor, to what some other officers saying is hearsay. Move to strike.
I would say it's effect on the listener, Your Honor, if the officer is going to do something as a result of information that he's told.
There's a different way I think you can elicit that same information. Objection sustained.
Sure, thank you, Your Honor. Officer Hudson, at some point in time, did you leave that location that you secured at Martinsville?
I did.
Was that a result of further orders in this investigation?
It was
Why did you leave?
to go search for a cell phone that was pinging in the area, the wooded area behind the residence between the church on Sumter Road,
And why was the cell phone important?
to obtain any information we can get off of.
Was the cell phone relevant to the scene that you had just secured?
It was.
Objection, Your Honor. How does the officer know if it's relevant unless someone is saying that to him?
Ms. Cox?
Move to strike.
Your Honor, I would just say that if he's going there for the cell phone, I'm trying to ask him if it has anything to do with the investigation that he did or any sort of work he did at the prior scene.
Objection overruled.
You may answer the question, sir.
Sorry, can you say the
Sure.
question again?
Was the cell phone relevant or important to your investigation?
It was a cell phone used to call 911 for the incident.
Were you, what,
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. How would this officer know that phone is used to call 911? So far, he said he went to go find a phone. Where's the leak from the phone to it's being used to call 911?
Ms. Cox?
Move to strike.
Your Honor, I'd say that the officer went there as a result of, he's already said that he went to a location to find a cell phone that was relevant to his investigation here. And so I could ask him how he received that information, but then that could also elicit more hearsay, potentially.
I'm gonna overrule the objection, but Ms. Cox, if you're asking, I'm with you on where you're going with your story. You just have to ask your questions a little bit differently.
Okay,
So as not to elicit the hearsay that you're trying to avoid.
Officer Hudson, from when you left the location at Martinsville and went to the church,
Objection, Your Honor. The witness hasn't said he's gone to a church. Move to strike.
Officer Hudson, when
I'm
you-
sorry, you're abandoning that question?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Hudson, when you arrived at the Martinsville location and you're dispatched there, are there things that show up on a dispatch screen in your car?
There are
What are those types of things?
the name of the caller, the call information, including the cell phone number that was used to call 911.
Do you remember what cell phone number was used to call?
Objection, Your Honor.
911?
Now he's talking about something that's not in court that he's reviewing in his patrol car that we certainly don't have access to cross-examine him on. I don't have his access to his screen to see what he's got or what he doesn't have. So now she's using something that's out of court, but the truth of the matter of something that's to come into court now. It's still hearsay.
Ms. Cox?
Your Honor, I'll withdraw that question. I'll ask it a different way.
Okay.
Officer Hudson, when you are dispatched to a location, is that similar to what would be like a CAD report or a CAD sheet?
It is.
And could you just explain what that is very briefly?
A CAD sheet it lists the call notes for the call along with a caller information such as a name and a cell phone number.
And is that the information that's showing up on your screen in the car?
It is.
Do you remember what name and cell phone?
Now we're using a CAD sheet. It's still hearsay. It's a statement. It's an out-of-court statement. They're still trying to use the same information for something that has not been admitted before this court.
Your Honor, it's not hearsay or it's effect on the listener. It's the reason why the officer went to the location.
Based on what he's reviewing is not before this court that I'm not cross-examining him on.
Ms. Woods, you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine him shortly. Your objection is overruled. Ms. Cox?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Hudson, what was the name of the 911 caller and the cell phone number associated with that person?
The 911 caller was Neil Sampson. I do have to look at my notes for the exact phone number that was used to call.
Yes, if that'd help refresh your recollection.
Yes, ma'am. 734-787-7227.
Thank you. And Officer Hudson, when these types of investigations are going on, is there an ability of someone to ping a cell phone?
There is.
And is that to ascertain the location of that cell phone?
It is.
Was that, if you know, done in this case?
It was.
Were you, what, if anything, did you do as a result of that pinging?
I went to the area to search for the cell phone.
What area was that cell phone at?
It was a half-mile range between the church on Sumter Road and the residence on Martinsville in the wooded area.
And so could you just describe, because if there's a location and there's a wooded area, could you tell the court what that area looks like?
It's heavily dense with trees and brush. Like I said, one side, it's in between the house on Martinsville and the church on Sumter Road.
Were you by yourself or were you with a partner at that time?
I was with two other officers from here on Township.
Were you able to find a cell phone after you went to that location?
I was not.
When you were at the house on Martinsville, did you find any cell phones there?
I don't recall seeing any cell phones.
After you're unable to find a cell phone in that wooded area, what do you do?
I went back to the residence on Martinsville.
What did you do at the residence there?
I secured the scene until 10 o'clock that night until I was relieved by Officer Joe Hogan.
Your Honor, may I just have one moment?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Officer Hudson, you testified earlier that you had responded to a domestic involving Raymond Bailey and Laura Tanner.
Correct.
Do you recall when that was?
It was in 2019. I don't recall the exact date. I'd have to look at my notes for refresh the exact date.
If that would help refresh your recollection.
It was 10/30 of 2019.
What location did you go to on that date then?
The residence on Martinsville.
What happened when you arrived at that residence?
I was approached by Laura Tanner.
You said that there were allegations of domestic violence. What specifically?
Objection, Your Honor, he hasn't said that there were allegations of domestic violence. He said he went to the residence.
Said he was dispatched there for a domestic violence report.
Objection overruled.
Officer Hudson, what were the allegations in that particular case?
That there's a domestic violence incident between Mr. Bailey and Laura Tanner.
In that incident, was a firearm involved?
There was.
Do you recall what type of firearm was involved?
It's a small caliber firearm, black in color.
When you arrived at that Martinsville location at that particular time, did you secure that weapon?
The firearm was located at a different residence on Willow Road.
Did you go to that residence?
I did.
Do you recall what address you went to on Willow Road?
I'll have to look at my notes for the
Yes,
exact
that's your
address.
recollection.
The address was 42611 Willow Road.
Who was at that location?
Raymond Bailey?
And that was a suspect in the domestic violence case as well.
Correct.
Were you able to secure the weapon then?
I was.
Do you recall the caliber of that weapon?
A 380,
And you said it was a small,
some compact firearm.
what happened after you secured that firearm?
I stood by the firearm till Sergeant Belowski arrived on scene to collect the firearm.
Did you observe him collect it?
I did not.
All right, Your Honor, may I please approach the witness?
With,
And I am going to be approaching with People's Proposed Exhibits 9 through 13.
The ones that you just showed me? Yes. Yeah.
thank you.
All right, sir, again, I'm going to be handing you People's Proposed Exhibits 9 through 13. I just want you to take a look at those and then look up at me when you're finished. Sir, have you observed all those?
I did.
Proposed exhibit, thank you. Let's start with People's Proposed Exhibit 9. What is that document of?
Exhibit 9 is a residence, the rear of a residence.
Is that a photograph?
Correct.
What residence is that?
It's the residence on Martinsville.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what that residence looked like on August 15th of 2020?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to omit People's Proposed Exhibit 9.
Ms. Woodside,
No objection, Your Honor.
should be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And let's move to People's Proposed Exhibit 10. What is that, sir?
It is a picture of the Martinsville with the first female laying on the deck.
And that deck is in the rear that you mentioned earlier?
It is.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of that part of the scene on August 15th of 2020?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to omit People's Proposed Exhibit 10.
Ms. Woodside,
No objection, Your Honor.
it's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, let's move now, sir, to People's Proposed Exhibit 11. Sir, could you tell the court what that is?
That is a picture of the second female located in the residence.
Is that the female that you came upon after you entered the residence?
It is.
The second individual?
Correct.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of that part of the scene?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to admit people's proposed exhibit 11.
Ms. Woodside,
No objection.
it's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And sir, let's move to people's proposed exhibit 12. Could you tell the court what that is?
Here's a picture of the first male subject that I encountered upon entering the residence.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of what you observed that day?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to admit people's proposed exhibit 12.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And sir, moving to people's proposed exhibit number 13, what is that?
That is a picture of the second male subject in the hallway of the residence.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of what you observed?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to admit people's proposed exhibit 13.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to publish to the court?
Yes.
Thank you.
What was 10? I'm sorry, I missed one.
10 was the first female on the deck.
Okay.
Would you like Officer Hudson to hand them to you or through?
You can hand them to me. And also number 5 was admitted but not received.
Sorry.
Judge, I'm having the officer in charge pass it up.
Thank you. Okay.
Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions for Officer Hudson, and I pass to Ms. Woodside to cross.
Thank you. Ms. Woodside.
Officer Hudson, you said you went to this residence on 10/30/2019, is that right?
Correct.
For its alleged domestic violence, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you saw no injury to the female, Ms. Tanner, is that right?
I don't recall any injuries. I didn't have much contact with Ms. Tanner at that time.
Did you see her?
I did for a brief second, ma'am.
Okay, well, if you went for domestic violence, you would have, as a part of your duties as an officer, look to see if you saw any injury, wouldn't you?
Ma'am, I was not handling the investigation.
But you physically saw, so you don't pay any, you go to a domestic violence call, you pay no attention to the person or who are allegedly involved in a domestic violence dispute.
Sergeant Belowski arrived on scene seconds after I made contact with Ms. Tanner, and he took over the investigation.
But you looked at Ms. Tanner, didn't you?
I did.
If you had seen something, you would have made note of it, wouldn't you?
Not in my report. I did not make any note of any injuries I saw.
Okay, but you would have if you'd seen something, wouldn't you?
I don't believe I would have done in this case
Okay, why not in this case?
because I didn't get a thorough investigation, a thorough look of Ms. Tanner.
Okay. You looked at her for how long, sir?
Only a few seconds, ma'am.
Okay, and then you never saw her again?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Bailey?
I did.
Did you see any injury to Mr. Bailey?
Not that I recall.
If you had seen some, you would have put it in your report, right?
Correct.
Object to ask and answer. Your Honor.
Overruled.
After, at some point, how long were you there this day in total?
Approximate time for my recollection, approximately an hour.
Okay. So you drove to the property, right?
Correct.
And you talked to who first?
On which property?
Where you say that you went on October 30, 2019.
Oh, I was at two properties, ma'am. One on Willow, one on Martinsville.
Where'd you go first?
Martinsville.
How long were you there?
Only a few seconds.
Okay. And who did you talk to when you went there for a few seconds?
Laura Tanner.
You talked to Mr. Bailey at all?
I did
How long did you talk to Mr. Bailey?
for approximately 10 to 20 minutes.
Okay. And there was no weapon at that location, is that right?
Which location?
On Martinsville, sir.
No, ma'am.
Okay. What were you doing for 10 to 20 minutes talking to Mr. Bailey then?
Attempted to obtain what went on between him and Miss Tanner.
Okay. And you got some kind of explanation, is that right?
I did.
And the explanation you got didn't cause you to go look for Miss Tanner to check her out physically, is that right?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then you left that location and went to someplace else, is that right?
I'm sorry. Can you?
You left Martinsville and went to someplace else,
Correct. I went to the address on Willow.
okay? And what did you get on Willow?
I spoke with Mr. Bailey at the Willow address.
Okay. Did you get a firearm at that address?
I did.
Okay, where at?
It was underneath a trailer in the backyard of the property.
Okay. And you just took the firearm with you?
I
Is
did
that
not.
right? You said you took it with you?
No, ma'am.
Somebody else took it with you?
Sergeant Blasky arrived at the Willow address to collect the
Okay.
firearm.
And then he took over the investigation?
He
Is that right?
was in charge of the investigation of the Wayman.
Okay. Now, when you first come to the Sumter property, you said you've been there before?
Martinsville?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know any of these people?
As far as prior experience or prior contacts,
Yes, sir.
only Laura for a few seconds.
Okay. You didn't know the other individuals?
I did
Is
not.
that right? I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Cox, any follow-up?
Your Honor, I don't believe so based on those questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer Hudson, for coming in.
Thank you, ma'am.
I need to counsel that.
The next witness,
We will call Sergeant Egger. The officer in charge is going to get her.
thank you.
Jess, can I get some water?
Yes, please.
Because he's mad, but I don't know about anybody else, but they drive me out and stuff me up. There's some water right there in the hall, a fountain. There's no fountain, not working.
I don't know about the fountain. Are the fountains working?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Officer Garcia.
Fountain's not working no more nowhere.
You know, most of them are turned off in buildings, so I can't even keep track.
Everywhere, there's no fountains. I don't know why they think about bringing water, like the prosecutor who told me to bring water. I'm harassing.
I feel the same way, though, the dryness. And you're scared to clear your throat. You know,
breathe
that
your own air for so
sparks a
long.
whole nother set of
Stuff you
problems.
up.
Ma'am, would you step right up to this little half counter, spell your first and last name for me, please?
Elizabeth Eager, Elizabeth. Last is Eager, Egerer.
You're gonna come up this little ramp, be careful, watch your step. Please raise your right hand for me. Do you swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you much. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Could you please state your name again for the record?
Sergeant Elizabeth Eager.
And Ms. Eager, how are you employed?
I work for the Sumter Township Police Department
How long have you been employed by the Sumter Township Police Department?
since August of 2004.
And I believe you mentioned your rank, but tell us what rank you are.
Sergeant,
And what does that mean?
that means I'm in charge of road patrol during my shift.
Okay. I want to direct your attention specifically back to August 15th of 2020. Do you recall that day?
I do.
And did something happen that day that brings you to court today?
Yes,
Were you working in your capacity as sergeant back on that day?
I was.
What happened?
We received a 911 call.
I'm going to stop you for a second. You said we. I only want you to tell us about what you did and what you received, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tell me what happened.
I was dispatched to a 911 call on Martinsville Road,
Do you recall the address?
24914 Martinsville Road.
And is that in Sumter Township,
That is in Sumter Township,
County of Wayne?
correct?
Okay. What did you do when you got there?
When I got there, I saw my partner already on scene,
And who was your partner?
Officer Sean Hudson.
Okay. And what did you do?
We discussed what he had found on scene and
When
then
you say,
waited.
I'm going to stop you. So when you say we, who do you mean?
Officer Hudson and I briefed
Okay.
that he had found
I-
a woman on the back patio with a large pool of blood.
I'm
And that
going to
there-
stop you for a second. When you pulled up, where were you?
I was out in front of the house,
Okay. And where did you meet Officer Hudson?
out in front of the house.
Okay. And it was at that point that you had the discussion that you were just referring to?
Correct.
Okay. Based on the information that he gave you, did you do something?
I retrieved my patrol rifle and waited for more backup.
Okay. Did you make additional notifications at that time?
No.
Okay. Why did you retrieve your patrol rifle?
Because he said that there was a
Objection,
woman.
Your Honor, to what he said, hearsay.
But it's not hearsay. It goes to the effect on listener. She's acting based specifically on what he said. I'm not offering it for the truth, but rather for what she did and why she did it.
Objection overruled. You may answer the question.
Go
You
ahead,
may
ma'am.
finish answering the
I
question.
retrieved my patrol rifle, excuse me, and made sure to cover myself
I'm sorry,
because
but-
he had seen a gun magazine on the ground near a lady that had a large pool of blood around her.
Okay. And so what did you do next?
Once the K-9 unit from Huron Township arrived, I went over and briefed him to tell him what we had found and asked him if he would assist Officer Hudson with the search of the house while I remained on the perimeter.
Okay. And when, to your knowledge, did they do that?
They did.
And when you remained on the perimeter, what were you doing?
I was making sure that nobody exited the home.
Okay. Eventually, was the home cleared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did you do after the home was cleared?
Once the home was cleared, I entered the home to make sure that none of the victims had pulses.
Okay. So walk me through that. Where did you enter the home from?
I went through the back door, which would be on the west side of the home.
Prior to entering the home through the back door, did you observe anything?
There was a white female laying on the patio with a large pool of blood. And we also saw that there was a bloody footprint on the patio.
Okay. Did you observe anything around that female?
There was a gun magazine on the ground around the female.
Anything else?
We did observe some bullet casing.
After you observed that female and entered the residence, what happened next?
I found another female on the ground. She was laying halfway between like the laundry room and the kitchen in the doorway.
Okay. And did you observe anything about her?
She had a bullet wound into her face and one towards her earlobe.
And did you check both of these females for pulses?
I did.
And were you able to find anything?
No.
What happened next?
I continued and found a white male laying on a couch. He would have been on the east side of the home, and there was no pulse found on him either.
Did you do anything else in the home?
I knew that there was 4 victims in the home, so I went down the hallway, which would be at the south end of the home, found victim number 4, and he didn't have a pulse either.
Did you observe anything around this victim at that time?
No. I did observe that he had a tattoo on his chest.
Do you recall what the tattoo said?
It said Forrest Sampson.
Are you certain as to that description that you're giving right now?
I'd have to look back at the photo one more time.
Judge, may I approach and retrieve what's already been admitted into evidence as People's Exhibits 9 through 13?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Here
you.
we are.
Thank you.
You okay?
Went to water? Okay, can my client have some water? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Judge, may I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as People's Exhibits 9 through 13. Can you take a look at those briefly and tell me if you recognize those photos?
I do recognize these photos.
How do you recognize those photos?
These are photos that I took at the scene.
Okay, and after you took those photos, did you do something with them?
I texted them over to Lieutenant Toth.
And do those photos fairly and accurately describe the scene as you perceived it on August 15th of 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to direct your attention, if I may approach again briefly, to Exhibit 10. What's in that photo? What's in that exhibit?
This would be the victim on the patio just outside the back door,
That you previously described?
correct?
Could you please move to Exhibit 11?
This is the victim just inside the doorway that's between the laundry room and the kitchen,
That you previously described?
correct?
And move to exhibit 12, please.
Okay.
And what's in that photo?
This shows the man, victim number 3, laying on the couch with the dog over him.
And then lastly, exhibit 13.
And that's the gentleman at the end of the hallway.
That's the one that you described as having the tattoo.
Correct.
Judge, would you like the exhibits back?
Yes, please. Thank you.
After you made these observations in the home, what's the next thing that you did?
Once I knew that there was no pulses, I backed out of the home and started a medic unit so that we could make sure that officially there was no life left in our victims, and started making notifications to the Detective Bureau and
And
our
so-
supervisors.
Did you observe the medics arrive?
Yes,
Okay. And did you speak with them?
yes,
Okay. And at some point did they leave?
yes.
Okay. What happened after they left? What were you doing?
I was making arrangements to get the Michigan State Police Crime Lab on scene. I also retrieved one of the dogs out of the home to make sure that no evidence was disturbed.
I'm going to stop you for a second. What was your role on scene at this point in time?
To secure the scene and make sure that nothing was,
Were you in charge of the scene?
yes, ma'am.
And so after you retrieved the dog from the location, did you do anything?
I started making a list of everybody that had been on scene.
And why were you doing that?
That's standard protocol for any crime scene.
Okay. And what did you do next?
With the dog, I noticed on his tags, obviously we want to know who our victims are that are there. So at this point, I didn't know who our victims were. I'd done some lean checks, and then I had looked at the dog collar.
I'm going to stop you. When you say you did lean checks,
Yes.
what does that mean?
So I ran all people registered to the address at 24914 Martinsville Road.
And when you did that, did you retrieve any results?
Not initially, but I did eventually find Laura as the only resident at that address.
And when you say Laura, do you remember the last name?
Tanner,
And so going back, then you attempted to do something with the dog?
yes.
Okay, what did you attempt to do?
So with the dog, he had a address and phone number listed on his collar. I did a search through our in-house database to see if the phone number was registered to anybody that we had had contact with, and that didn't reveal anybody. So then I took the address and I ran it through the Secretary of State website that we have access to in our cars, and found multiple people listed at that address in Detroit on Cabot Street.
And ultimately, did that search become fruitful to any extent?
It came fruitful to a Sarah Gupta Tanner. She had a couple different names but that would be one of our other victims on scene.
All right, do you recall her name specifically?
I'm not sure exactly how it was listed in the Secretary of State website.
Okay. And you said Sarah, either Grupa or Tanner?
Correct.
Okay. And so after you performed this search, at some point in time, did you become familiar with the name of Raymond Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you become familiar with that name?
The car was registered to him in the driveway.
I'm gonna stop. Okay, so tell us about that. I don't think you covered that. So
Oh, my apologies.
that's okay. Did you, at some point in time, you made an observation about a car in the driveway?
When I was en route to the call, Officer Hudson ran the vehicle in the driveway. The registered owner came back as Raymond Bailey.
Okay. And when you arrived on scene, did you notice that car, that vehicle?
Yes.
What did you do with the information about the name Raymond Bailey?
Well, at that point, it was not something, I was not familiar with his name. While we're investigating and Detective Lieutenant Toth is on his way, we are gathering our team of investigators, and one of those investigators would be Sergeant Belowski.
Okay.
And when he arrived on scene, he advised me of a previous incident.
Objection, Your Honor, to what Sergeant Belowski is telling us, hearsay.
Again, Judge, it's not hearsay. I'm not offering it at this time for its truth. I'm offering it specifically for what this officer did next with the information that she received.
Overruled.
Well, Judge, I just want to stay for the record, and the question would be, what did you do as a result of the information you got, without saying what the information was?
You need the context for why she did what she did. Again, it's not being offered for its truth at this time. It's being offered for what she did. But without knowing what it was that or why she did what she did, the information is in a vacuum. That's why the exception exists for the affected listener, specifically as it relates to police officers who are conducting an active homicide investigation.
I already overruled the objection. You can continue with your
Thank you.
questioning.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
What was the information you received from Sergeant Belowski?
Sergeant Belowski advised me that he had been at this residence once before for domestic violence, where Bailey had been arrested for domestic violence against Laura Tanner.
And at that point in time, did Raymond Bailey become a suspect in this investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do anything else as far as surveillance around this property?
I did talk to the neighbor across the street.
Do you recall that person's name?
I don't believe I could pronounce it correctly.
Do you recall the spelling?
No.
Would it refresh your recollection to review your report?
Yes. I have it here.
Oh, okay. Can you just show me what you have with you?
I have the CAD notes from dispatch.
Okay, that's actually, Judge, may I approach with the report?
Yes, thank
I
you.
do have the report too.
Okay, I'm just gonna hand you mine. Could you please, and just for the record, I showed Ms. Woodside, I'm referring to page 10 of 39. Could you please
Okay.
take a look at that and tell me if it refreshes your recollection as to the spelling of the neighbor's name?
Yes, it does.
Could you please spell the name for the record, please?
Yeah, AKUA is the first name and the last name is YISRAEL.
Thank you. And did you gather any information from her?
She mentioned that,
Objection, Your Honor, to what the neighbor's saying, now that's hearsay.
Again, Judge, I'm not offering it for its truth. I'm offering it for what this officer did next.
I'm sorry, are you referring to something that's in the report?
Yes.
Okay. Objection overruled.
while talking to the neighbor, she mentioned that that day she had heard multiple gunshots in the area. She looked out her window, but she didn't see anything.
Okay. After speaking with her, what other actions did you take as it relates to the investigation?
Put together my list of people on the crime scene. I turned that list over to Officer Hudson, and then I went back to the station and started working on search warrants.
Okay. And what search warrants did you start working on specifically?
I worked on the search warrant for Raymond Bailey's phone and for the truck that was registered to Laura Tanner.
So let's go back and let's break this down and do one by one. At some point in time, did you receive information as to what Raymond Bailey's potential phone number may be?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall who that information came from?
No, But I do know that in our database, we had had multiple contacts with him, and it revealed the same phone number over the last decade.
Do you recall that number? If you don't, that's okay. Just asking.
I'm not 100%. I don't want to make a mistake.
I don't want you to either. So would it refresh your recollection as to your report?
Yes.
Ms. Woodside, page 10 again. May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Showing you again, page 10, just take a look at this, read it to yourself, tell me if that refreshes your recollection as to Mr. Bailey's phone number.
Well, I don't see it on there, but I do remember the phone number. Oh, there it is, yes.
And what was the phone number?
734-775-0165.
Okay. You also mentioned a truck. Tell me about the truck.
The truck was registered to Laura Tanner, and we had received information that Ray was driving it.
And so what did you do with that information?
I relayed the information to Lieutenant Toth that Ray was driving the truck and that we had his phone number. So we needed to do a search warrant for the phone to see if we could locate Mr. Bailey.
And did you mention doing a search warrant for the truck as well?
I did.
Okay, and did you completed that?
I did.
All right, and both of those were approved?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to go back because I think I forgot to ask, so I apologize, jumping way back. Do you recall specifically what time you arrived at the location on Martinsville Road?
Well, 53.
And you had previously testified Officer Hudson arrived just before you, or before you?
Correct.
Do you recall anything else that you did to investigate in this matter?
Not up to this point. There were several search warrants after this point.
And so you continued to investigate and continued to assist after this point that we just discussed?
Correct.
And who took over the investigation from you?
Lieutenant Toth.
I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Ms. Woodside.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. Did you just say you took these photos, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Exhibit 10, 11, 12, and 13?
That is correct.
Did you take other photos?
Yes, ma'am.
And on, you said you spoke to a neighbor, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you got information from this neighbor?
That is correct.
What time did you talk to the neighbor?
I don't recall the exact time.
Okay, wait, from the information that you got from the neighbor, what did you tell us that the information was?
She said that she had heard multiple gunshots.
Okay. What time did you get a time frame for when that supposedly took place, ma'am?
I tried to get her to lock down a time frame. She mentioned that she was outside from 9:30 to 11:30-ish, and then she went inside and she was doing some stuff, and she wasn't exactly sure, but she thought it was around noon or 12 o'clock that she heard the gunfire.
Okay. The thinking it's around noon was not included in your report. Is that right?
I don't recall. I'd have to
You have
refresh my
your
memory.
report that the prosecutor just showed you, page 10. You need to look at it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you look at it, please?
That is correct. That she said she had been out in the yard between 9:30 and 11:30.
Okay, but the part about maybe around noon, that's just not in your report, is that right?
That is correct.
You take
Whenever-
notes about that?
I'm sorry?
You take any notes?
That is on my body cam.
Okay, now, could you ask her where she's making these observations from?
She was inside her home.
Okay, looking what direction?
She said she looked out the north window.
Okay. You went to that property where she resides, is that right? Or it was,
I
maybe
was-
this information from?
I was
is that
at the
right?
north end of her property line,
And when
near
you
a
look-
mailbox,
When you look north, what do you see directly?
a field.
Okay, anything else?
When I look north directly from her home?
Yes,
No.
ma'am. Can you see the property on Martinsville Road?
You can't see a direct view. You can see their bushes out front.
But that's all you can see?
You can't directly see the home.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Nothing based on that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant.
You're welcome. Judge, before I call the next witness, two things. At this point in time, I have what's been pre-marked for identification as people's proposed exhibits numbers 1 through 4. They are, I'm gonna start with people's proposed exhibit number 1. It is the post-mortem report for victim Sarah Gruppa. I believe that there's a stipulation to the identity of the victims for exam purposes only as Sarah Gruppa, Laura Tanner, Forrest Sampson, and Neil Sampson. So People's Exhibit 1 is the postmortem report that was performed on Ms. Gruppa by Dr. Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, Avedschmidt, A-V-E-D-S-C-H-M-I-D-T. The report is signed and dated August 27th, 2020. It finds that, in Dr. Avedschmidt's opinion, that the death was caused by multiple gunshot wounds and the manner of death is homicide. And it is the full and complete report. This report is admissible under MCL 766.11B. So at this time, I would move to admit People's Exhibit number 1.
Ms. Woodside,
Oh, no objection, Your Honor.
admitted.
Moving on to People's Exhibit number 2, same argument as to admissibility applies. It is the postmortem report for the postmortem examination performed on victim Laura Tanner by the same doctor, Dr. Sarah Avedschmidt. It finds that in her opinion, the death was caused by multiple gunshot wounds and the manner of death is homicide. It's signed and dated August 27th, 2020. At this time, I'd move to admit People's Exhibit number 2 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor, to exhibits 1 through 4 for
Thank you,
exam
ma'am.
purposes only. We've already discussed it.
For exam purposes only.
Thank you. Then just for the record, People's Exhibit number 3 is the postmortem report for victim Forrest Sampson, finding it's her opinion that the death was caused by gunshot wound to the chin, and the manner of death was homicide. And again, it's signed and dated. It's dated August 27th, signed by Dr. Avedschmidt. That's Exhibit 3. Lastly, for the record, People's Exhibit number 4 is the postmortem report for Mr. Neil Sampson. It's Dr. Avedschmidt's opinion that the death was caused by multiple gunshot wounds. The manner of death is homicide. It's signed and dated August 28th, 2020.
Inasmuch as Ms. Woodside has indicated that she has no objection for exam purposes only, all 4 of these exhibits will be received 1 through 4.
Thank you, and may I pass forward to the court?
Yes, thank you.
And prior to calling the next witness, may I have a 2-minute break?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'm asking for 5.
We're gonna, well, we'll say 5-ish, 5 adjacent.
Ish.
Okay, thank you.
He likes to look at you too. I see that. Well, I think he likes to see where you're at.
Yeah. What has he got to lose?
Oh, you're right.
You know what? He probably sleeps well every night.
He's a hero, man.
Jim. Right?
Nobody's up here yet. Gum?
I can go get that pack from, oh, I got it, gum.
No, no, thank you.
Coffee in these masks.
I know,
It just doesn't mix.
I know.
Ants? Maybe that's why they built a new court, they can't get rid of the ants.
Just something that's too, so it's like.
No. It can be, ants can be, one of your neighbors cut down a tree, all kinds of different stuff.
There's been too much.
Stinky boys. When's your turn?
So you all went over last week to the new building, Officer Brooks?
I'm sorry?
Did you go over to the new building last week?
Yes.
Any plastic up?
Class.
Any sneeze
In the
guards up?
courtrooms?
Yeah.
No. I didn't see them. Is there in the car? No, there isn't. I hope we're not taking this.
I'm not.
That one looks so.
It's
You
both.
guys are almost open?
What's that?
You guys are almost open over there?
What is it, the 10th, we're gonna be opening?
Oh,
We're in
really?
the street, yeah.
Wow.
No, last time I went over there, they had just put the drawers out in the courtroom.
We had to go admire our lacquers.
Is it everything you drink?
No, but they're a lot better than what we had.
So I should go over there and spray paint them for you, get them all nice?
Decorate them like in high school. The last one is gonna be delivered May 4th.
The picture will be ready May 4th. The framing will be done.
Oh, nice. Did you look for a table?
I didn't, because I don't know. I think I might leave it like it is and leave the in and out baskets either on the conference room table, because I can't imagine anybody's coming back.
But a table, like your coffee, like a coffee
Like a
table.
console table,
Yeah.
a short. The problem is the chair rail is right there too, so I don't want something bumping up against the chair rail and scraping the paint, scraping the finish off of it.
What time are your sisters gonna be here Friday?
2.
So I'll meet them.
I know we have stuff, sentencings and arraignments, and I didn't want to have them come early and be stuck behind this. Plus, I want to see what else. Now that they have the cabinet stuff in place, I want to figure out what else we need to do. Because when they move the big stuff, those bookcases
Oh,
are
I'm
screwed
sorry.
together.
I forgot
yeah.
the direction
Yeah.
of travel.
Thank you, yes, Jamie.
We're ready?
Yes, thank you.
I had my liquid crack in the car jug. Coffee.
I know what you meant, but is that still your first cup of the day? Or 3 or 4?
I got a big one.
Ooh, see, you're a
I think
woman
I
after
can
my
bring it
own
in.
heart.
I run out there and have a sip.
We are back on the record in 201-447 FY State of Michigan versus Bailey. Madam Prosecutor, were you ready with your next witness?
Yes, Judge, thank you. The people called Joseph Sosha.
Coffee pot. Do we need a new coffee pot? I've never even seen you use
I
it.
don't drink coffee. You don't either.
Yes, I do. Are you kidding me? Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Would you spell your first and last name for her, please?
Joseph Sosha, Joseph Socia.
You're gonna come up this ramp and have a seat. Be careful though. It's a little bit of an incline. Before you sit down, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand. Do you swear a firm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You can have a seat. If you're chewing gum?
Yeah.
It might interfere a little bit with her picking you up.
All right.
Okay. Mary Ann, let us know, please.
Yep.
Ma'am?
Thank you. Good morning, sir. Could you please state your name for the record?
Joseph Sosha.
And Mr. Sosha, are you familiar with someone by the name of Raymond Bailey?
Yes.
Do you see Mr. Bailey in court today?
Yes.
Could you please point to him and tell me what color shirt he's wearing?
Green shirt.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness identify the defendant.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, how do you know Mr. Bailey?
Friends growing up
How long have you known him?
many years since grade school.
And are you, would you describe your relationship as being one of very close?
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry. So in as much as you can, yeses or nos, no mm-hms, uh-uhs, nas, or yas, because it comes out differently on the transcript, okay? Are you familiar with someone by the name of Laura Tanner?
Yes.
How are you familiar with that person?
Raymond's ex-girlfriend there.
Do you know how long they were together?
12, 13 years,
How would
maybe
you,
longer.
how would you
I
describe
want to
their,
say
rela-
98, since 98.
since
Yeah,
98?
yeah,
Okay. How would you describe their relationship?
decent.
Did there come a point in time where that relationship ended to your knowledge?
About 2 years ago, a little over that now.
And did Mr. Bailey start dating someone else?
Yes,
And who is that person?
Brianna,
Do you recall her last name?
no,
Does she have a nickname?
Blondie.
After the breakup between the defendant and Ms. Tanner, what would you say the relationship was like between them, if you know?
Very bad.
I want to direct your attention back to August 15th of 2020. Do you recall that day?
Oh, yes,
Did something happen that day that ended up bringing you to court today?
yes.
Tell me about what happened.
I got a phone call around 5 o'clock,
Who was the phone call from?
Craig Blankenship.
Okay, I don't want you to tell me what Mr. Blankenship told you, but based on that phone call, did you do something?
Yeah, I took off and I went down towards the Flint area, started to look for Ray,
Okay, let me back up a little bit. Do you live in the Lower Peninsula?
Upper Peninsula.
Okay. And were you at your home at the time that you received the call you just
I was at
referenced?
work, building a barn just north of the Mackinac Bridge.
Okay, do you recall what time it was that you heard from Mr.
It was a-
Blankenship?
It was around 5 o'clock.
And after you received that phone call, you said you started to drive down?
Yeah.
Okay, and you said you started to look for Mr. Bailey?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, sir, it's yes. I know it sounds
Yes,
nitpicky, but
yes.
Did you know what type of vehicle Mr. Bailey was driving at this point in time?
Yes.
What type of vehicle was that?
Chevy Silverado, 4-door,
Do you know what color?
white.
Do you know the ownership of that vehicle?
It was financed through Laura. Ray would deposit money in her account or give her cash to make the payments.
And when you say finance, you mean that truck was in Laura's name?
I believe so.
Now, did there come a point in time where you attempted to contact Mr. Bailey after you received the call from Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Tell me about that. What happened?
I called him. He was confused, upset, lost. Said, what'd you do? I need to get you brought in and whatnot. And I
I'm
started-
sorry, I'm gonna stop you.
I'm
You
sorry?
said to him, what did you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he respond to you?
He said that he's lost. He doesn't know where he's at. There was a little bit of mumbling, not too much. I told him I'll be on my way. I'll come and get him. I'll bring him in.
You say bring him in. What do you mean?
Bring him in to the police.
Did you have some information at that point in time that you thought required bringing Mr. Bailey into the police?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry.
yes.
Okay, so after this, how long did that phone call with him last? Do you recall?
Maybe 5 minutes, maybe.
After that phone call, did you do something else?
I got on the road and started driving down.
Okay, what happened next?
I called my cousin that's a detective up in that Sioux area. Asked him what I should do. He told me to reach out to the detective that's handling that case. And I called Sumter Police Department, I think it was, and I spoke to Officer Toth and told him what I was doing.
Okay. At the time when you said you called and spoke to Officer Toth, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, at the time when you spoke to Officer Toth, what did you tell him happened?
What do you mean?
What did you say to Detective Toth when you talked to him on the phone?
Oh, I told him that I'm Joe, Ray's friend. I heard what he's doing, made contact with him, and I'm going to bring him in so no one has to get hurt. He doesn't hurt himself. That's it.
At this point in time, what information did you have?
That just from what Craig mentioned to me, that he,
Objection, Your Honor, because that's gonna be hearsay what Craig told him.
So at this point, Judge, I'm not, there'll come a point in a moment where I am, but not right now. At this point, I'm offering it solely for its effect on the listener based on what the witnesses have testified to that he did in terms of contacting Detective Toth.
Objection overruled.
So you can go ahead, sir. What information did you have at this point in time?
that Ray killed 4 people. That was it.
And you communicated that to Detective Toth?
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes, yes.
Sorry. After you hung up with Detective Toth, what did you do next?
I kept driving south. I don't know if Ray reached out to me after all that, a couple minutes after, or if I tried calling him. But we reached each other there via phone, tried to get a bearing on where he was located. He was still kind of lost by that time. I was probably 20, 30 minutes south. He was trying to find a landmark so we can find a point to where we can meet up.
And when you say he, you mean
Right.
Mr. Bailey? Okay. He was trying to find a landmark where you and he could meet up.
Yeah.
Did you talk to him at this point in time, what had happened, about what had happened?
Yeah.
Okay, what did he tell you?
He made a mistake. He was still kind of lost in the conversation a little bit. That's it. I mean, there's really not much to it, just trying to get locations where he was at.
Did there come a point in time where Mr. Bailey told you he shot 4 people?
He didn't say he shot 4 people.
What did
said
he
he
say?
made a mistake. Something bad happened. Good. Just trying to get, the rest of the conversations was just where he's at, where I'm at, where we're gonna meet up.
Did there come a point in time at any point where he told you he killed 4 people?
The following day, when I came back down to pick him up, he started to mention that what he did, and I told him I did not want to hear any of that. I don't want to have that image in my head.
What did he start to mention? What exactly did he say?
That he made a mistake, that he ended up pulling the trigger and killing 4 people.
And at that point in time, did you know who he was referencing?
Yeah,
And who was that?
Laura and the 3 others.
And is that
I'm not
Laura
familiar
Tanner?
with- Yes, I'm not familiar with their names.
Did you know the relationship between Laura and the other, well, did you become aware that there was another female that was killed?
Yes,
And did you know the relationship between Laura and that female?
yes.
And what was that relationship?
I believe they were sisters,
Okay.
and the other 2 were cousins.
Did you relay that information to Detective Toth?
Yes,
Okay. So let's go back. So after, this would be the second point in contact that you have with Mr. Bailey, as you're driving down and he's communicating with you, trying to find a spot to meet up. What happened during, were you able to meet up with him at that point in time?
with Ray?
Correct.
No.
Okay, what happened?
Lost contact. Phone was either battery was dead or he lost or gone or something. I have no idea. Could not reach him. I drove down to a gas station where we were supposed to meet up.
Do you recall the type of gas station it was?
Speedway,
Do you know what city that was in?
Bay City. And then back and forth from the Applebee's where he parked his truck down to the gas station. I drove a mile radius around the place, that block, I guess, looking for him, thinking he was walking.
Okay, let me back up. You mentioned that the Applebee's, that he parked his truck.
Yeah.
How do you know about him parking his truck?
Because he ended up in that spot about 10, 15 minutes before I was able to get there.
When you say he, who do you mean?
Ray,
Okay, so did Ray tell you that he was going to put his truck somewhere?
yeah, and he
Okay.
would meet me at the gas station. Yes.
Okay, so when did that conversation happen?
That was the first day when all this happened.
Okay, was that the first time that you spoke to him or the second time that you spoke to him?
It was probably the 6th time that I spoke to him
Okay,
around that time. I don't remember what time it was. You should have that.
so,
Maybe around 10, 11.
okay, I'm not asking about what time it is right now. I'm just asking if you know which point of contact that was. You described so far 2 times that you've spoken to him. So is it fair to say that you were in constant communication or frequent communication with him
Frequent, not constant,
after you spoke to Mr. Blankenship as previously described?
yes.
And so during the course of these conversations, what were you attempting to do?
To reach Ray so I can bring him in.
Okay. And in the course of those conversations, what was he telling you about his location and what he was going to do?
That he was gonna be there waiting for me,
And when you say there, where do you mean?
Bay City.
Okay. And did you discuss the plan to meet at Applebee's?
No, he said that he was going to leave his truck there at Applebee's and go to the Speedway.
And when he said his truck, which truck did you understand that to mean?
The Chevy Silverado.
Okay. Did he tell you anything about what might be in the truck?
No,
Were you familiar with whether or not Mr. Bailey carried guns?
I am aware he carries guns,
Okay.
but at that moment, he told me that he had nothing when he was on the phone.
Okay. Let's go back to the first question. You said you were aware that he carried guns. Do you know what type of guns did you know him to carry?
It was probably a real small, I don't know what caliber, real tiny one, and a .45.
Did there come another point in time where Mr. Bailey told you about whether or not guns would be in the truck that you previously referenced?
I asked him on that last conversation that we had over the phone if he's gonna have it with him, his gun with him. He said no,
Did he tell you what he did with it?
no. I believe he left it in the truck.
Why do you believe that?
Well, when I looked inside the windows of the cab, I seen his bug out bag. And that's
Hold
where
on one
that-
second. Okay, when you looked inside, so we have to kind of, I know that it can be frustrating and I know you don't, but I have to walk you through every little thing step by step, okay? So let's go back to, did you go to the Applebee's where Mr. Bailey had told you he had parked his truck?
Yes,
Okay. And when you got to the Applebee's, did you observe something there?
his truck.
Okay, what did you do?
I looked inside his truck. The truck was locked.
And
I know-
what did you see when you
I
looked
noticed
inside?
that his bug out bag was inside the back of the truck.
When you say bug out bag, what is that?
It's a backpack. If there's an emergency situation, you can just grab it and go.
Did you know what he typically carried in that type of bag?
Just that .45.
After you made those observations about the truck, what did you do next?
I went down to the Speedway, looking for him, drove around the block, went back to the car, went back to the Speedway, went back to the car, and then I was picked up by police.
And when you say picked up by police, do you recall which police department it was at that point in time?
Bay City.
Okay. And had you contacted them?
No.
Okay. When you were picked up by the police, what happened next?
Went down to the police station.
That's the Bay City Police Station?
Yes.
Okay. And once you arrived at the Bay City Police Station, did you make contact at some point in time with detectives from Sumter Police Department?
They reached out to me. They came in maybe around midnight, 1 o'clock, something like that.
And did you speak with them?
Yeah, they were there.
Okay. And what did you talk to them about at that point in time?
Just what we just got done saying. Our history, what happened, how we got to this point in Bay City. Everything that was just said.
Okay. And after you spoke with them, what did you do next?
Went back to the gas station, that Speedway, looked for him, didn't see him. Then I headed north.
Did there come a point in time in your conversations with Detective Toth where you told him about what Mr. Bailey had told you about the victims calling him the night before?
Yeah,
What did Mr. Bailey tell you about those communications the night before?
that they were harassing him, saying that they were gonna take the truck, keep the house, take the bike, threatening him. etc.
And this would have been the night before the shooting.
Yes,
And what did you know at that point in time about the house that you just mentioned?
That there was a, believe it was financed through her. He was making the payments. He wanted the house. The agreement between Laura and Ray was a car and $10,000 would go to her. She'll sign the house over to him, and they'll both be separated.
And so as far as you knew, the house was in Laura's name.
As far as I believe, yeah.
And as far as you knew, based on what the defendant had been telling you, was there a lot of contention about this property?
Yes.
And did he tell you about those phone calls during one of those frequent contacts you had with him after you talked to Mr. Blankenship, but before you spoke to, in person, Detective Toth?
He told me that they were calling him, bothering him throughout the night, earlier that morning before any of this happened.
Okay. And did he tell you what he did as a result of being bothered by them?
At that time, no, nothing, I believe, happened at that time.
It was later that he told you about what he did, the next day.
It was that night at 5 o'clock.
When you spoke to Mr. Bailey, and he ultimately tells you that he shot 4 people, the time that is happening, that
That was the following
conversation,
day.
that is the following
Yeah.
day, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be August 16th of 2020.
Okay.
Is that correct?
If that's what it is, August 16th.
Okay, it's the day following August 15th.
Yes.
Okay. All right. After you spoke to Detective Toth, what did you do?
On what day?
So you testified that you spoke with him in person around midnight
Mhm.
after learning the information that you testified about on August 15th. So that would have been the early morning hours of August 16th, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a yes?
Yes.
What did you do after you left the Bay City Police Department?
On the 15th, I guess it would be early morning, the 16th, I went home. I think I was there for about 2 or 3 hours. I get a phone call from an unknown number that was Ray. Told him I would be on my way, I'll head back down, and then I informed the detective.
And when Mr. Bailey called you from that unknown number, what did he tell you?
He's sorry, he went to a hotel, passed out, got some rest, and he's ready
And when he said he's ready, what did you interpret that to mean?
for me to bring him in.
Okay. And so where did you go after that phone call?
It was just north of downtown Bay City. Picked him up and then brought him to the same police station where I was at the first night.
And that would be in Bay City, the
Yes.
Bay City Police Station.
Yes.
Okay, what happened once you guys got there?
I seen a police officer walking in to the police station. And I told him, I recognized him from the night before. Told him I found Ray. Ray's right here. He wants to turn himself in. He says, okay. He goes inside. That officer goes inside and grabs 2 more officers. They come out, speak to Ray, grab him, and put him inside.
And at that point in time, did you leave the police station?
No, I was there, I don't know, probably 2-3 hours. I guess we're waiting for some marshals to come in.
Okay. Since this has happened, have you remained in communication with Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
May I have just one moment, Judge?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I want to back up for a second. Earlier in the day, on August 15th, did you receive a phone call? So before you heard for context for you, before you heard from Mr. Blankenship, on August 15th, did you receive a phone call from Mr. Bailey?
Yeah.
And what was the nature of that phone call?
That he had issues with them throughout the night. I think that was around 10, 11 o'clock. I'm not for sure what time.
And what did he tell you he was going to do?
He was getting upset, so I tried to convince him to come upstate. We'll turn the truck in. He told me about the issues, what they wanted.
And did he tell you why he was getting upset?
Because they were threatening him. They wanted the house, the truck, the bike.
And did he tell you whether or not he was planning on taking the truck over there?
No, I don't remember that so much. I believe the conversation ended with him coming upstate, and we'll take the truck down. I'll give him one of my extra vehicles.
When you say give him, who do you mean?
Ray.
So how did the conversation get there?
He says, well, what do you mean? Well, he said that he was having a hard time with them and what they were doing. He was stressed out. So I told him, come on out.
And so did he
Take
tell
a
you he
break.
was thinking about dropping the truck off over there?
No, I told him to calm down, to take a break, and then we'll go down together and we'll drop that truck off and you can have one of my other vehicles.
So you said, you told him to calm down. What was his voice like when you were talking with him that morning?
It was just normal, just a little stressed, nothing major.
Just a little bit stressed?
Yeah.
Okay, didn't sound angry to you?
Well, you have a conversation with somebody describing your night.
I'm sorry,
And see
sir.
what kind
So
of- what
the
kind-
question
what
that
kind
I
of
asked
tone
was, did he
would you
sound
have?
angry to you?
No, he didn't sound that angry.
Okay.
I mean, upset, but not.
But
not
overall
at that
calm?
point.
Overall calm?
For the most part.
Okay. Do you recall telling Detective Toth that when Mr. Bailey called you, that he told you that Laura was at it again and acting stupid?
Yeah.
Do you recall telling Detective Toth that Bailey said he had had enough of it and he was fed up with it?
He was fed up.
And at that point in time, you told him to, do you recall telling Detective Toth, you told him to get away from it, meaning Bailey, to get away from the situation?
Yeah, that's what I said to you.
Sir, is those are the words you just used, you just testified to?
Yeah. I
When
told
I
him to
asked
take a
you.
break. I told him, take a break, come on up.
Okay.
Meaning upstate.
Okay. And that's why you told him to come on up, because he said that he was fed up with Laura, correct?
Yeah.
And did you mention something to Detective Toth about somebody not knowing what Mr. Bailey was capable of doing or what he wanted to do? Do you recall that?
Yeah.
And those are all things that you told Detective Toth?
Yeah.
And those are all things that you discussed with Mr. Bailey when you talked to him the morning of August 15th, 2020?
Yes.
And you testified this call was around 10 or 11 in the morning?
Something like that.
And the next communication you had related to Mr. Bailey, not necessarily from him, was around 5 in the afternoon from Craig
Yes.
Blankenship. One moment, Judge. Nothing else, thank you.
Woodside.
So, Mr. Socia, you know Mr. Bailey very well, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You all work together as well?
Yes.
And over the course of time that you knew of his relationship with Ms. Tanner, was it always volatile?
Not always, but more often.
Okay. And during the time of their relationship, would it be fair to say that they would break up and go back?
Near the end there, yeah.
Okay. And during the time of their relationship that you're aware of, you knew that there was supposed to be an arrangement about trying to dispose of this particular property,
Yes,
and you said that was over a period of a couple of years,
it was drawn on for almost a year.
about a year.
Yeah,
And during that particular year that you said it was drawn on, was Mr. Bailey upset during those periods of time?
Yeah.
Was this property disposition conversations happening more than one time?
Yeah.
More than 2 times?
Yeah.
More than 3 times?
yes,
Be fair to say, happened multiple times, is that right?
Yeah.
And on this particular day, so the 15th, you first talked to Mr. Bailey sometime in the morning,
yes.
and what was his demeanor at that time?
He was upset about being up for a while, dealing with people threatening him,
Okay,
taking his truck, his livelihood, taking the house, taking the property, backing out of a deal that was supposed to go through for the 5th time.
okay. But he didn't make any threats or harm anybody, did he?
No.
Okay. And
At
then,
that time, no,
and
that I
then
know of.
did he make to you, did he ever make any threats to harm anyone?
No,
Okay. Throughout the course of the 5 or 6 times that you spoke to him? During the course of the 5 or 6 times that you spoke to him, what was his demeanor overall?
I'm sorry, Judge, can I just ask for clarification as to the time frame? Because we were just talking about the morning of August 15th, and then Ms. Woodside referenced the 5 or 6 times, and I believe that on direct, those 5 or 6 times were in the afternoon after 5 p.m. So I just want a time frame clarification.
Okay, let's talk about the very first time. What time was that, do you remember?
very first time
Then
I
you
spoke
spoke
to him
to
that
him?
morning,
Yes, sir.
around 10 or 11.
Okay. What was his demeanor then?
He was upset, irritated by the situation that he was going through, I guess, at the time.
Was that any different than when he'd been dealing with this situation over the past year?
It was
His
starting,
demeanor.
it seemed like it was kind of starting to get a little bit worse, the whole situation.
Okay.
But it wasn't, as far as the tone of the voice, no, it wasn't as bad.
I'm sorry, Ms. Woodside, hold on one second. Are you just the landscaping? I'm sorry. You're asking about his voice.
Yeah, and I'm listening to.
I know.
More too. Forgot what
I'm just
I was
concerned
saying
she's not
before.
picking up Mr. Socha's testimony.
So, over the, when you talked to him the first time on the 15th, it's fair to say he's upset about the disposition of this properties,
Yes.
including a house,
Vehicles,
right, vehicles, whatever else it was.
Yeah.
Okay. When then you talked to him a second time on the 15th?
not until after 5 o'clock.
Okay. And after 5 o'clock, when you talked to him, what was his disposition then?
He was lost, confused, upset.
Okay, well, let me ask you. When you
And I
say
don't know how
lost,
to explain an emotion like that.
okay, that's what I want to talk about. You're saying, because we have to use our limited word, lost. You mean lost as I don't know which direction I'm in?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's what he was saying. He had no idea where exactly he was.
Okay,
He said that, man, I'm driving this. Well, where are you? I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. He was upset. And
okay.
then finally got a bearing on where he was. And we went from there.
You've known him for so long. You ever seen him angry before?
Yeah.
When you talking to him on the 15th, prior to 5 o'clock, is he angry?
Before 5 o'clock?
Yes.
Yeah, he was upset.
Okay. When you talk to him after 5 o'clock, was he angry?
He didn't sound like he sounded earlier that day.
Okay,
Just a
How
little
did
more
he-
calmed down, I guess.
okay. When you're saying he didn't know where he was, are you having conversations about where are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
He wasn't able to tell you where he was?
correct.
Have you ever driven with him in this stretch of area from the UP to down here before?
Yeah.
I'm gonna object to relevance.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if he could get some bearing about where, did you ever figure out where you thought he was?
I think we figured out where he was around Flint,
Okay,
the Lansing area, heading towards Lansing,
okay.
something like that.
And you said he was confused. What makes you say he was confused?
Judge, I'm not object to the form of the question. It may call for speculation. It does call for speculation the way it was asked.
Ms. Woodside, would you rephrase?
You said my client tells you that he is confused?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you understand him to mean when he said he was confused?
Him saying, I'm confused, I'm lost, I don't know where I'm at.
Okay. And then you said he was upset, confused, and what was the other thing that you said?
I don't know what.
Well, let me ask you, did you tell the police that he was crying?
Yeah, he was upset, crying.
Okay. And anything else? You remember telling the police about his disposition?
No, I don't remember.
Did you ask him where he'd been?
Oh, I asked him what has he done? What happened? What'd you do?
Okay. And you said he tells you that he killed 4 people?
No, not at that time.
Well, when did that come up?
The following day,
Okay.
because he already knew, I knew the whole situation.
Okay. You didn't have a discussion with him about what you knew, did you?
Yeah,
Okay. So you told him what someone else had told you?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes,
Okay. And then you were meeting him so that he could turn himself in.
yes.
Is that right? Did you have any concern about whether he would harm himself?
Yes,
And did you convey that to the Detective Toth?
yes,
You know Mr. Bailey to have firearms, is that right?
yes,
Did you believe he was capable of harming himself?
yes.
No further questions.
Let me redirect.
Just briefly. You just testified, Mr. Sosha, that he already knew what you knew. When you told him about what you had learned, what was his response to hearing that information?
On who?
What was Mr. Bailey's response to hearing
That,
what you knew?
well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm lost. I just,
And then after he said, I'm lost, you then began to figure out what landmarks.
correct. I told him that there's no forgiveness for this, and you gotta turn yourself in. And he knew that I already knew at that point.
Nothing else.
Thank you. Mrs. Osha, they're all done with questions for you. Thank you. Be careful going down that ramp, please. Mary Ann,
Yes.
don't you, no, I'm just 1 second.
Okay.
Ma'am, would you spell your first and last name right here, please?
BRRANNAALLEN.
Sally, you're gonna come up this ramp, watch your step, it's a little bit of an incline. Raise your right hand for me, please. You swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Sure.
Thank you. You may have a seat right there. Ma'am.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, ma'am. Could you please state your name for the record?
Brianna Allen.
Miss Allen, I know that your voice is rather soft-spoken, so I'm gonna ask while you're testifying to pretend like I'm standing way back under the clock and you've gotta reach me with your voice, okay? Okay? All right. Miss Allen, are you familiar with someone by the name of Raymond Bailey?
Yes.
Do you see Mr. Bailey in court today?
Yes.
Could you please point to him and tell me something he's wearing?
Green shirt.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness identified the defendant.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you familiar with Mr. Bailey?
He was my boyfriend.
He was your boyfriend or he still is your boyfriend?
Still is.
And were you dating back on August 15th of 2020?
Yes,
How long had you been together at that point in time?
a little over a year,
And how did you meet?
through a friend,
What friend?
Tom.
I'm sorry?
Tom,
Is that Thomas Johnson?
yes,
Okay. And when you met, and then throughout the duration of your relationship, did you become familiar with someone by the name of Laura Tanner?
yes,
And how are you familiar with that person?
his ex,
When you say his, who do you mean?
right.
Did you know about what their relationship was like in the time that you were dating Mr. Bailey?
Not fully, but
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
I said not fully, but the general of it.
Okay. And what did you know the general nature of that relationship to be like?
Just unwell,
I'm sorry?
unwell,
Unwell?
yeah.
Okay. I know it's really hard, but I'm even having a hard time hearing you. So can you keep your voice up as loud as you can? Yeah, is that a yes?
Yes,
Okay. So the relationship between them was unwell.
yes.
Okay. Do you know, to your knowledge, what was it unwell about?
They were trying to sell the house and get his truck out of her name and everything.
Okay. When you say the house, is that a house on Martinsville Road in Sumter Township?
Yes,
Who was living at that house on August 15th of 2020, if you know?
Laura,
Was Mr. Bailey living at that house on August 15th of 2020?
no,
Had he lived there anytime before that in recent memory?
whenever I first met him,
And when was that?
June, I think, of 2019.
Okay. And so he moved out of that house sometime after June of 2019, to your knowledge?
Yes,
On August 15th of 2020, do you know where Mr. Bailey was living?
and the Wyandotte house.
You said in the Wyandotte house.
Yes,
So that's a house in Wyandotte?
yes,
And who was he living with?
me,
Was he dividing his time living between the Wyandotte house and somewhere else?
not really,
Did he have another property somewhere?
in the UP,
I'm sorry?
in the UP,
Is that in Kinross?
yes,
You also mentioned, in addition to the property, the house on Martinsville Road, that they were trying to get the truck, his truck, out of Laura's name. Was that what you testified to?
yes.
Tell me about that truck.
It was a Silverado, white.
I'm sorry,
long
what color was it?
White,
White, okay. And the truck was in Laura's name,
yes,
but Mr. Bailey was driving it.
yes.
Was there another vehicle that was jointly, kind of
The-
jointly owned, if you want to call it that, between the two of them?
His Harley was also in her name.
Any others
No.
that you know of? Okay. At one point in time, did they also have a dog in common?
Yes,
What's that dog's name?
Brad's
Where's that dog now?
with me.
I want to direct your attention back to, actually, let's start on August 14th of 2020. Were you and Mr. Bailey living together at that point in time?
Yes,
And do you recall what day of the week August 14th was?
Friday, I think.
Did you have plans that weekend?
Yes,
What were your plans?
go to my sister's.
Okay, and how many sisters do you have?
2.
What city was the sister's house that you planned to go to in?
New Boston.
New Boston?
Yes,
Where did your other sister live?
Mylan.
And do you recall knowing what Mr. Bailey's plans for that weekend was?
No.
So what did you do on August 14th?
I went to the doctor's that morning and then went over to my sister's.
And that's in New Boston?
Yes,
Okay. Did Mr. Bailey go with you?
to the doctor's, yes, but my sister picked me up.
Okay. And then he was not with you after that?
No.
When you left to go to your sister's on August 14th, was that the last time that you saw Mr. Bailey up until recently
Yes,
in person? After you went to your sister's, did you remain in communication with Mr. Bailey?
yes,
How did you communicate with him?
through text and phone calls.
Miss Allen, I'm sorry, but with the landscaper, I know that I can barely
Through
hear
text
you.
and phone calls.
through text and phone calls?
Yes,
Did you have some communications with him in the evening, late evening hours of August 14th of 2020?
yes.
And what was the nature of those communications?
Just asking how everything was going.
He was asking you how everything was going?
No, I think I was asking him.
Okay. And do you recall exactly what you asked him?
No.
We're gonna get to it in a little bit, but did there come a point in time where on August 15th, you subsequently turned your phone over to Central Township Police?
Yes.
And how did you have Mr. Bailey listed in your phone?
Ray.
I'm sorry?
Ray.
Ray? Do you recall what your phone number was and back on August 14th and 15th of 2020?
Yes.
What was your phone number back on that date?
517-672-6044.
Okay.
They're all in here, right? Okay. I'm just looking here. I'm trying to find a check. Yeah.
And to your knowledge, after you turned your phone over to the Sumter Township Police, did they do something with it?
They kept the records of our messages.
And when you talked to them on August 15th, did you end up showing them some text messages?
Yeah.
And if you were to see those text messages, would that refresh your recollection as to the communication between you and Mr. Bailey in the late evening hours on August 14th of 2020 that we were just talking about before I derailed us a bit?
Yes.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you, it's page of the phone extraction, it's page 6,707. I'm going to direct your attention to this line. Do you recall now what you asked Mr. Bailey?
Yeah.
What did you ask?
What he was up to.
And what did he respond?
I don't remember.
Would it refresh your recollection if you reviewed those text messages?
Yeah.
Same page. Okay. Do you recall what he responded?
But he feels like clearing the scumbags out of his home.
Is there another word he used in there?
Vigilante style.
Vigilante style or vigilante-like? Did he tell you how he was feeling?
Pissed off.
How did you respond?
I'm sorry.
After the text message communications that night, did there come a point in time where you spoke to him on August 15th of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, before we get there, did you spend the night at your sister's?
Yes.
What did you do the next morning, that being August 15th of 2020?
I think I went to my other sister's,
And what were you doing there?
helping her clean her house.
At some point in time, did you receive or start to receive communications from people
Yes.
that related to an incident that brings you to court today?
Yes.
Who was the first communication that you received from?
Joe
Joe who?
Sosha,
Who did you know Joe Sosha to be?
Ray's best friend.
And when you spoke with Mr. Sosha, did he tell you about what was going on?
No.
Did he tell you about what you should do?
Yes.
Based on the information that you received from him, what did you do?
I stayed at my sister's.
And did you come, at some point in time, did you have some communication with Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
How did that communication occur?
He called me.
Do you recall what time it was that he called you?
I think it was around 7 in the evening.
And what did he say on that phone call?
I asked him what was going on, and he said I shot them.
I can't, sorry, what did you say?
You gotta say it again. Keep your voice up as loud as you
I
can.
asked him what was going on, and he said I shot them.
When he told you he shot them, who did you understand that to mean?
Oh, Laura and her, whoever was in the house.
And that would be the house on Martinsville Road?
Yes.
What did he say anything else?
Said he was going to meet Joe to turn himself in.
When you, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, so I apologize. When you left your sisters, you left for your sisters on August 14th, was Mr. Bailey's truck, the white, you said it was a Silverado?
Yes.
Was that still at the home that you two shared?
Yes.
After he told you that he was gonna go, did he tell you anything else in that call aside from I shot them and that he was gonna turn himself in?
He wanted me to go get the dog and my stuff.
Get your stuff from where?
The Wyandotte house.
Did you know why he was telling you to go get the dog and get your stuff?
Yes.
Why?
Because he was the one paying the rent there and I didn't have a job at the time.
What did you do after you spoke with him?
I went to go inside to ask my sister if she could take me over there.
And what happened next?
The cop stopped me.
Did you talk to Mr. Bailey twice that evening?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that second time.
The second time was when he asked if I could go get grabs.
Okay, so those were two separate conversations. I apologize. Okay, so the first conversation, what did he tell you?
Was him admitting it, and then he said Joe was calling him, so he would call me back.
Okay, and then did he call you back a short time later?
Yes.
And what did he tell you in the course of that conversation?
That was him asking me to go get grabs and everything else.
Okay. And after you spoke with him, what happened?
The cops came.
And did you speak with them?
Yes.
Did you tell them about what he had told you?
Yes.
Were you aware of a prior incident between Mr. Bailey and Miss Tanner, where the cops came?
Yes.
Where were you living at that point in time?
Tom Johnson's house.
Where was that located? What road?
Willow.
Willow Road? And who was living with you at that point in time?
My sister Rachel, Tom, and he was staying with us for a little bit.
When you say he, who do you mean?
Right.
And would this have been back in October, late October 29th or 30th of 2019?
Yes.
And what do you know about that incident?
He went over there.
When you say he, who do you mean?
Ray.
Okay.
Went over there, came back.
When you say over there, where do you
Over
mean?
to the Martinsville house.
And was that where Laura Tanner was living?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened when he went over there, if you know?
He came back and said that she hit him with his car and to call the cops.
What was his state of being like back on October 29th or 30th of 2019 when he came back to the house?
He was drunk.
Did the police arrive at Willow Road where he was?
Yes.
And did you see them do anything when they were there?
They arrested him.
Okay. Did you see them recover anything?
No.
Do you know whether Mr. Bailey carries guns?
I only know of one.
I'm sorry?
I only knew of one.
You only knew of one? Which one did you know of?
I'm not sure what it was. It was a small handgun.
Do you know where he kept it?
It was usually either in his truck or in the house.
after you spoke with Mr. Bailey on August 15th, did you become aware that he was taken into custody?
Yes,
Did you maintain contact with him? Have you maintained contact with him since that time?
yes,
And in the course of that contact, did he ask you whether or not you got money that he left for you?
yes,
And did he leave you money?
yes,
Where did he leave it?
in my dresser.
When he was talking to you back on August 15th, did he tell you what was going to happen to his things? Did he tell you who was going to take his things?
He said Joe.
When you would discuss, or would you discuss what was happening with Mr. Bailey? Would you discuss with Mr. Bailey what was happening between him and Laura as it related to the property?
They were going back and forth because 1 minute she was okay with selling it, and then the next she refused to, and then would threaten to take the bike and the truck.
That's what he told you?
Yes.
Okay. How did it make him feel, if you know?
Angry.
Did you have telephone communication with him at all on the evening of August 14th, 2020?
Yes.
And
Sure.
what time?
Telephone, like phone call? Or
Yeah,
just-
like an actual phone call instead of text
I
messages.
think it was just texting.
When you spoke with him in the evening of August 15th, did he give you any details about, or when you spoke to him on August 15th at any time, did he give you any details about contact that he was having or had with Laura or anybody else?
No. Or he said earlier that day, some guys were calling, threatening to take the bike and the truck again.
Some guys were calling, threatening to take the bike and the truck again?
Yes.
And did you understand that to mean the bike, meaning motorcycle,
Yes.
that was in Laura's name?
Yes.
And the truck that was in Laura's name?
Yes.
That he was driving?
Yes.
And did he tell you about how that was making him feel?
Irritated.
How did he sound to you?
Angry.
And then later, after that communication and around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, did you receive some text messages from him
Yes.
before you had actual phone contact with him that you previously described?
Yes.
And what did he tell you in those text messages?
He said I fucked up. And then I asked what he meant, and all he said was bad. And then he never answered after that.
Until you spoke with him later on, is that right?
Yes.
Where were you when you received those messages?
At my sister's in Milan.
When he told you, when you spoke to him that first time after 7 in the evening, and he told you he shot them, how did he sound?
In shock.
Did he sound upset? Did he sound sad? Did he sound, what was describe his voice, his tone of
We
voice?
judge the passage sheet, the witness already testified, sounded in shock.
It's a different question.
Oh,
He sounded sad, upset.
since this incident, and you testified you've been in communication with him, has he made other statements to you about what happened on August 15th, 2020?
Not that I can recall.
Has he said anything to you about being sorry or anything like that?
Yes,
What did he tell you?
he just said he never meant for it to happen, and he saw red and snap.
In the times that you had been talking with Mr. Bailey about his relationship with Miss Tanner, did he ever talk about hurting Laura?
I mean, make offhanded comments, but
He'd make offhanded comments?
yeah, but that was about it.
When would he make those offhanded comments?
Usually whenever she was trying to start something,
In his perspective,
yes.
what kind of offhanded comments would he make?
Just that he hated her and
I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you repeat that with your voice up a little bit?
I said just that he hated her and didn't want to deal with her anymore.
He hated her and didn't want to deal with her anymore?
Yes.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
Nothing else.
Ms. Woodside?
Ms. Ellen, picking up on where we just left off, how many times, if you know, have you heard my client say he hated this Tanner and didn't want to be with her anymore?
Just a couple.
Okay. And on those a couple of occasions, was there anything different between one time and another time?
No.
Okay. You said you knew about their relationship over the past year, is that right?
Yes.
Did you personally know Miss Tanner?
No.
You never met her, correct?
No.
Okay. And you said he made a couple of offhand comments. Is that one time, more than one time?
It was just once or twice.
Okay. And you said, when the prosecutor asked you that he sounded sad and upset, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you also said he sounded in shock, is that right?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Like he didn't fully, like he didn't realize what he just did almost.
Okay. But you said he uses the word, I fucked up and bad in a text, is that right?
Yes.
And what time did that text come through?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Is that on the Friday or the Saturday?
I'm not sure.
You
I
said,
think it was on Saturday.
okay, you went to your sister's on Friday, right?
Yes,
So you get this text on a Saturday, is that right?
I think so.
And it's sometime in the evening, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, but you never have a discussion with Mr. Bailey about these particular statements, the I fucked up and bad, is that right?
Mm-mm.
So.
I'm sorry. Yes or no?
Is that right?
No.
Okay, because you never have any description or any detail from Mr. Bailey about fucking up or something bad happening.
Yeah.
You don't have any,
No.
right?
Not until the phone calls later
Okay.
on.
Because you weren't there, right?
No.
You don't know what happened, is that right?
No.
So now you said earlier on Saturday the 15th, you have some information about these guys supposedly threatening to take his car and his bike. Is that right?
Yes.
And then he was irritated and he was angry. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that the first time that, to your knowledge, that somebody has threatened to take the bike and the car?
No.
How many times before had that happened?
Couple times a week usually.
I'm sorry?
Couple times a week usually.
A couple times a week. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And during these couple times a week, would it be fair that my client was irritated
Yes,
and angry?
yes,
Did he threaten to go out and hurt anybody?
no,
Okay. Now, on the 15th, Saturday, is this a phone call or is this a text? When he's telling you, you find out that he's been taken into custody.
that was through a phone call.
Okay. And do you know about what time that was, by any chance?
I'm not sure about what time it is.
Okay. And during the time that my client is telling you he left money in it for Joe to get his things, was that the evening? Afternoon of the 15th?
The evening, I think.
Okay. Are you and you're talking to him directly?
Yes,
Okay. You said that you knew him to carry a small gun, is that right?
yes,
Okay. And not seen any other type of firearm, is that right?
no.
At the time that you said my client tells you, I shot them, what was his demeanor when he's saying those words?
In shock and upset.
Okay. Can you be more descriptive than in shock and upset?
I didn't really talk much after that. It just seemed.
Okay. Let me ask you about these texts the prosecutor showed you. The text is, the question is what you're up to.
I'm gonna object to the form of the question
You just showed,
to refresh her recollection that she testified from her memory about it.
okay. Well, let me ask you, you have some text message with my client?
Yes,
The same text messages the prosecutor just asked you
Yes.
about?
yes,
Do you remember exactly what the texts were? Question and answer, question and answer?
yes,
Was there a text where he asked you asked him what you're up to?
yes.
And you remember what the answer was that he gave?
He said irritated and tired.
Okay,
Want to clean those scumbags out of his house.
okay. Now, had my client ever made any other similar type of statement about getting the people out the house before?
Yes and no, like it was just anytime they would talk about like him selling the house, like obviously they would have to get out first.
Okay, and that would happen multiple times, right?
Yes,
Now, you all have lived together in the Wyandotte house, is that right?
yes,
And you said he had a property also in Kinross.
yes,
Had you been to those properties?
yes,
Had you been to the property out on Martinsville Road?
no,
So you've never been in the property?
No.
Okay. Had you ever gone to the property with Mr. Bailey at all?
once whenever we like first got together.
I'm sorry?
Once whenever we first got together.
Okay. Did you hear him have conversations with Ms. Tanner?
No,
Never?
No.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Just briefly, Ms. Woodside and myself both asked you about these text messages. Thank you. Was it common practice for you and Mr. Bailey to text one another, love you, back and forth?
yes,
Do you recall receiving a text message at 12:42 PM on August 15th from Mr. Bailey to you saying, "I love you"?
Yes.
If nothing else.
Thank you. Ms. Allen, that concludes your testimony. Thank you for coming in. Please be careful going down that ramp. Your next witness?
People call Detective Salagen. Judge, this is the witness where there is the video, so can I have just 1 minute to look the court up so I can be ready at the time of admission?
Absolutely. Do you need a break before we start with Salagen?
I would always appreciate one, given my current state,
I
so.
understand. So it's 12:13 right now. Let's be in recess 5 minutes. Will that give everybody time to hook up and get where you need to be?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Jamie, if you could help them get hooked up, please. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, we try to.
Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna run to the restroom and I'll be right back.
Go
5 minutes after we set up.
Confession.
Are we on are we still live? Are we on break?
I was gonna say, I might be the last one.
You are.
Well, depends on how bad I screw.
Well, you might have to get up there and fix everything.
Bail them out.
Yeah. Might have to fix everything. We're gonna have to do something right now.
She's on break.
I think the confession.
Are we just sitting down up there and say, I mean, I could like walk around? I just think we should be. We just gotta hook this up there.
I'm sitting at the station waiting for.
Tim will yell at us. Prosecutors keep. Forgot all that. He said that. Wait a minute, I was gonna send you a note. Are you two high fucking or what? No, you wouldn't. Yeah.
Oh, me.
Oh, but she was killing. Did you always do that? Make face? How did you do this the exact same thing?
I've never sat down and watched the radio.
Here we go. That'll be in.
Yeah. Captain Brooks, you have anything else you need to say? Shh. What's that? He's trying to give me a hard time and it's backfired. Oh, it backfired, did it? Mm-hmm.
If Zoom's still on, it did.
Huh?
If,
Zoom is not in the volume,
no, not Zoom,
Polycom, whatever.
Yahoo or whatever the hell that is.
No, YouTube.
YouTube.
Oh, we're streaming live right now?
I believe so.
Oh.
You just do this.
For all your fans out there.
You guys seen the new building?
No, haven't been inside.
Beautiful.
And everything's gonna be by Zoom. Nobody's gonna even get to enjoy it except for you guys. That's all that matters.
That's true.
At least for 2 more years.
Probably. Although on the way over here, we heard that the Michigan numbers are down.
Well, that just means she's gonna close more stuff.
As I said, that information is trustworthy.
Yeah.
They said right after Mother's Day, she's gonna close restaurants again.
What? We're at 1/3 of the population is vaccinated in the state.
Still #1 in the country.
Are we though? I look at it's per capita, not infections. So it's a weird way to look at it. We're still 10. But if you word it
Right.
differently, then we become #1.
All depends on who's doing the numbers.
Right. I just look at Worldometer and we're 9th or 10th.
Did you break it?
Stop it.
I just want to give my defense. She's staring at me at all times.
He's right
I
in my ear.
understand I have that impact on her, but I'm.
It's a sickening.
Okay, I'm gonna wear my mask.
Sickening. Don't stand in front of me anymore. Thank you.
I'm smiling even though you can't tell.
Thank you for the break.
You need to keep your laptop plugged in, ma'am, while this is going on, or can you? Is it
I can move
charged?
it. It's charged. It should be charged. Yeah, it's plenty charged.
Or I can.
Is Sally your last witness?
Yes.
Your name.
So 8 became 6, thank you. Not complaining one way or the other, just trying to.
Totally understand. I like to say that I have more than I do just in case something comes up, and something did, so it's worked out.
I'll do everything that I can.
No.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Do you need the dongle,
I'm sorry, I have an HDMI cable here.
HDMI?
Yep. And we're gonna go right straight from your computer into this
Yes.
HDMI signal, and hopefully that works.
Should. The ironic part.
You thought I didn't drink coffee?
Because I've never seen you drink it.
Are you?
I guess I just.
I drink it first thing in the morning. I don't drink it during the day.
I never, but
Okay.
when you're here, I've never seen you drink coffee.
Stand right.
I only, yeah, I drink my
home.
first 2.
No, anyway.
I drink my only 2 first thing in the morning. Before I do anything else, I stagger downstairs. The pot's already on. He puts all my little stuff out for me. As soon as he hears me hit the first top step, he takes out the
knows.
coffee and the sugar and the cream.
Make sure it's ready.
Program the night before, load it, ready to go. Yeah,
And then
I'm
you're
that
okay.
person. I don't drink it during the day. It doesn't keep me up or anything. I just,
It's just a habit.
since I was a little kid, back
No
when it
way.
was, 1 quart of coffee, 3 quarters.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to do that with the milk and just this much coffee. It's stunning my growth. That's why I'm so short. That's the
Oh.
story.
You're sticking to it.
It's 2 minutes.
Well, I agree with that. Because.
But then I looked at our coffee pot and nothing about that encourages me to drink at work. This pot right here or the one in the back.
No. We don't, are we taking this one?
No.
We don't need to, right?
Nope. I just ordered a new Mr. Coffee for the house because our original one did something. It makes a noise when you open it to put the coffee in. It's like a clicking. And I hate to come downstairs and it not
And have
work.
it not work. That would not be a good day.
And then I'd just be taking spoonfuls of coffee or something.
But it's not playing there.
Absolutely, so do you have to do anything to your computer for that to do that? It's HDMI 1, I believe I have HDMI.
I like tea. I like to drink
I love
tea.
tea.
I
Mhm.
love tea.
Hey, Mary Ann,
Why can't-
could you call Fred, see if he can come down?
Yep.
why don't you just let him look at it on the laptop?
I'm fine with
I
that.
Never mind.
Works for me.
Never mind.
Judge, do
Well, the
you,
judge requested this.
Oh.
Yes,
Ooh,
yes.
lies you tell.
Oh, I thought you said you wanted it on the,
I don't care how they play it as long as everybody can see it, but how is everybody gonna see it? That's the only thing.
I've seen it.
if you want to call Fred, see if he can come down.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The judge said.
I thought you said
Check the
no. I
HDMI.
thought I heard someone say no.
I got it on 1.
try,
is it
is there,
marked one?
is there a 2?
There is, we can drill that too. Let's see, let me change it.
I think there might be.
So you need to start training on the new system so we can have a smooth integration.
So you just put it on 2? Yeah.
3, go to 3.
Is it on 3?
Yeah, go to 3.
And what's the first screen, there you go. And you said 3? And it's nice.
If he comes in here, you are broken. We're all gonna be in trouble. Oh, here he comes.
Perfect.
That's weird. That's
So it was
the-
on 2, not 3.
What kind of tea do you care?
Three's the polygon.
Okay, so I got it on
What kind
1.
of tea do you care?
Oh, no. I'm,
That's all we got.
sometimes I don't even need caffeine.
Look at my signal. This is different.
Last night I did like,
Now it says no signal.
like a stress-free, like yogi. How about you?
I'm not picky. I open the cabinet, there's some on the shelf, I'm like, okay. I'm not one of those, I can't drink it all day long.
No, I can't either. And I couldn't think, but mine are in bags. I don't do the,
I've done the loose tea.
seems like a lot of work.
It's not.
Oh, no?
There's a insulated plastic cup that you fill with hot water and the tea, and there's a strainer on the bottom. You just fill it with hot water, let it steep. And when you set it on top of the cup, the rim of the cup lifts it up and strains the tea out. It sounds complicated, it's not.
Does it, is there a difference? Can you taste the difference between that and a tea bag?
No, it's the dongle one thing.
Stronger?
Depends on the, you can, I mean, you let it steep longer and it's
Well, whatever
stronger,
you're
but
doing back there, it makes it green.
just because it's more
Because it
fancy.
was trying to boot it over off the other way.
So something on her
This one
laptop then?
can't-
No, it's this thing, I think. For whatever reason, it's not putting it through to the, place it's supposed to. Or how it's supposed to.
Hmm. If it's a thing, we can watch it some other kind of way. We can figure it out.
I've got one more dongle.
Let's give it a shot.
My second dongle. Let's try it.
I'm trying to convince Fred that he should run our Netflix account. Go in the courtroom so people can watch it while they're waiting.
Oh, yeah.
I could plug it. Why don't I just plug it
Is he
directly
buying
into
it?
the disk drive? Why don't I just
He
plug it
doesn't
directly into
listen. He
the?
just comes and
We're
fixes
gonna
it.
try if this does not work.
All right. Try this.
There you go.
I just didn't like the prospect of us passing one laptop around to watch whatever this is.
No,
Plus Fred's magical and he makes stuff happen, so.
certainly try. Change it. Now, one more time, touch it with this.
Does your niece come home?
Plug in the jug.
She'll be home on Friday.
Yeah, I thought there was end.
She'll be home on Friday. For the
Ah,
summer.
Oh, it's so weird because it's there. Like,
Yeah, it smells it.
Does she know what she's
So I
gonna do?
suggest just
She
letting
was
her see it.
I haven't heard yet,
That'll be.
and I'm sure I'll get plenty of chances to.
Oh, yeah.
give me the plug the disk drive.
In 1 second. Make sure we press through like here.
There
it is. No, this is the other PC I just plugged
I
into.
see.
So we're ready to unplug it?
Disk drive? Yeah. I take it down a little.
I got a mouse on that.
I can show a picture now. Yeah, see like all those days.
No, that is, it's like 3 days in a row we matched.
Maybe.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make sure it comes up.
Great.
You guys did everything right, just the all would not want to work.
Thank you, Fred.
No problem.
Will this lock? If I don't touch.
It shouldn't.
Okay, so if I don't touch it for,
Password,
like-
just hit enter to get through.
I'm sorry.
If it does lock, just hit enter because there's no password on it. You'll be able to get
Okay.
back in.
Okay, thank you.
We are back on the record on 201447 FY, State of Michigan versus Bailey. Madam Prosecutor, your next witness, you're gonna stand up right here. Spell your first and last name for me, please.
GeorgeSalajan.
Thank you, sir. Come up the ramp, be careful. Raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Swear to God.
Thank you much. Have a seat.
May I, Judge?
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Can you please state your name for the record?
Detective George Salajan,
And sir, where are you employed?
Sumter Township Police Department.
And how are you employed there?
I am a detective.
And how long have you been so employed?
I've been a detective for about 1.5 years now, and with the department for about 8 years.
And did you become involved in a homicide investigation with taking place at 24914 Martinsville Road in Sumter Township?
Yes,
And did you ultimately end up being assigned as kind of a co-officer in charge?
yes.
Okay, what is an officer in charge?
Someone that oversees the investigation.
Okay. And what are you responsible for as an officer in charge?
We just kind of, well, we do our own part, and then we just kind of oversee what everyone else does and review what they do.
And when you say they, do you mean other police officers?
Yes,
Is it also your job to preside kind of over evidence and collection of evidence and take additional steps based on whatever is needed from the information that you receive?
yes, whatever is needed.
Okay. I want to direct your attention back specifically to August 15th of 2020. Were you working that day?
Yes.
And what shift were you working?
I was working day shift. I'm not exactly sure what hours it was, but it's during the day.
And is there something that happened that brings you to court today?
Yes.
What happened?
A quadruple homicide.
And did you ultimately receive a dispatch to a location?
Sergeant Eager called me on my cell phone.
Okay.
And advised me that they responded to a 911 call, and upon arrival and clearing the house, there was 4 deceased subjects that all had apparent gunshot wounds.
Based on this information, did you do something?
Yes.
What did you do?
After responding to the scene, I created a search warrant.
Hold on, don't get ahead of me. Did you go to the scene?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do when you got there?
Once at the scene, I entered the house and observed all 4 subjects, and that they were all deceased, and I exited the residence.
Okay, based on your observations, what did you do?
Created a search warrant.
Okay, what was the search warrant for?
The residence and the property that the residence was on.
And was that search warrant approved?
Yes.
And did there come a point in time where personnel from the Michigan State Police arrived?
Correct.
Okay, and how did that come about?
I do believe that they were notified, they were contacted by Sergeant Eager to come to the scene. And once they arrived on the scene, I made contact with them once they were on the scene.
Okay, and did you help direct them or tell them what they should be doing?
Not really. They kind of do their own thing.
Okay. Did they author reports?
Yes, we have reports from them.
And so, yes, they authored reports?
Yes.
And were those reports turned over to you as well as your other co-officer in charge?
Yes.
And who is the other co-officer in charge?
Detective Lieutenant Toth.
Thank you. Okay. After you prepared the search warrant for the house, what was the next thing that you did?
After I was done with the search warrant and it was approved, I took it to the scene and turned it over to the one of the technicians that were on, one of the Michigan State Police technicians that were on scene.
Did there come a point in time where you encountered an individual, a civilian, that came to that location on Martinsville Road?
Yes.
Who did you encounter?
Well, there were more than one.
Tell me about it.
Well, there was Alexander Sampson.
Okay. I'm sorry, let me pause for a second.
Okay.
So you met someone by the name of Alexander Sampson at the scene on Martinsville Road?
Yes.
Okay, tell me how that arose.
Well, he arrived on scene and was kind of there, and I approached him to try to figure out like what he was doing there, and he advised that he was.
Objection to what Alexander Sampson is saying is hearsay.
I agree, so don't tell me, I don't want you to tell me what he said at this point in time. Did he identify himself to you?
Yes.
And did you learn about his relationship to that location?
Yes.
What was the nature of his relationship to that location?
He was in a dating relationship with Laura Tanner.
Okay. At that point in time, did you know the identities of the people who you just described as being deceased inside of the home.
I was not certain of the subjects. I didn't,
Okay, at that point in time.
at that point.
Okay. And so after you had a conversation with Mr. Sampson, what did you do next?
Stayed on scene and ended up making contact with Demetria Bronow.
Okay, tell me about that. Who is Demetria Bronow? Can you spell that? Do you know how to spell the last name?
I can guess, but
I don't want you to guess.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm not.
Do you know how to
100%
spell it?
Sure. I'm not 100% sure on the spelling of the last name.
Okay, rather than go through, Ms. Woodside, can we stipulate that it's Bronaugh?
Yes.
All right. Tell me about your interaction with Ms. Bronow.
So after the incident, officers went and canvassed the area for security cameras in the area. And while I was on scene, Ms. Bronow arrived on scene and said that she had downloaded video to a USB from, don't remember the exact times, but of their cameras that were on their house, and she turned over a USB
Okay,
to myself.
did you become aware of Ms. Bronow, where Ms. Bronow lived?
Yes, I am aware of the residence.
What road does she live on?
She lives on Martinsville Road.
Okay, and is that the same road that the
Yes.
homicide scene is located on? Okay. How far away is Ms. Bronow from the 24914 Martinsville Road?
Approximately, I would approximate maybe a mile
Okay,
or so.
okay. You don't know for sure, you're just
I
guessing?
don't, that's an approximate of
Do
knowing.
you know how many houses away?
I do not.
And so after she presented you with a USB drive,
Yes,
did you review what was on that USB drive?
yes.
What was on that USB drive?
There was video from a camera that was on the Bronow residence that faced Martinsville Road.
Okay. And what did you observe on that video?
On one of the videos that was on the USB, there was a white Silverado pickup with a cap on it that was traveling quickly northbound Martinsville Road.
Do you recall, you mentioned in your testimony previously, you weren't sure of the exact times. Do you remember roughly the timestamps of that video?
I want to say the timestamp was roughly, I don't want to testify something that I'm not certain of.
Nor do I. So do you not remember?
I do not recall the exact timestamp.
Okay, if you looked at your report, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Give me 1 second. May I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at this, sir. Read it to yourself, and then let me know if that refreshes your recollection.
Yes, it does.
Okay, can you put that down? Take that. What were the timestamps on the original video?
The original video when the white pickup truck was northbound was at 11:54 a.m.
Did you continue to watch this video?
I did.
And what did you observe?
That video only showed the vehicle traveling northbound.
Okay.
But as I continued watching other videos at approximately timestamp video of 11:56, the same white Chevy Silverado was seen traveling southbound on Martinsville Road.
And did you continue, after you saw that, did you continue to watch the video?
Yes.
And what did you notice, if anything?
At some point, there was, I saw responding officers also traveling on
And do you
Martinsville Road.
recall what time on the video it recorded the responding officers traveling on Martinsville Road?
No.
Would it
but
refresh your
if I
recollection?
If I saw my report.
Would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
I'm gonna show you again. Look at this, read it to yourself. Let me know if your recollection is refreshed.
It is refreshed.
What time did you observe on that original video?
On the original video that was time-stamped at 12:20 PM, I observed Huron Township responding officer at that time.
And did this bring about any thoughts in your mind at this point in time?
Well, knowing what time the 911 call originally came in, I believe that there was a delay between the video footage in real time.
Okay. And so what time did you recall the 911 call coming in?
Around 12:32.
Okay. And so based on your observations and your thoughts about the inaccuracy of the time on the Ring doorbell, what did you do?
I contacted dispatch and I asked them what time the Huron officer called that he was out on scene. And I did an approximate calculation to when he arrived to when he passed on the video camera.
Okay. And what was the time difference then?
With the approximate of when he called out, my calculation said that it was about a 40-minute difference.
Meaning the timestamp on the original video would have showed something that was happening 40 minutes earlier than it actually was.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Did there come a point in time where in your capacity as co-officer in charge, you received another set of videos from the Brown House?
Yes.
Okay. And how was that provided to you?
Given my approximation on the time of the videos, I requested Sergeant Belowski to go to the residence and do a time check of the cameras. While he was at the residence, another camera angle was produced to Sergeant Belowski, and Sergeant Belowski turned that over to myself.
Okay. And to your knowledge as co-officer in charge, did Sergeant Belowski's, did he report that time difference to you when he returned?
He reported that the time difference was.
What he's reporting, because that's hearsay.
It's the same thing, Judge. It goes to the effect on listener, and he's the officer in charge, the co-officer in charge of this case.
Objection overruled.
You can continue.
Sergeant Belowski advised that when he checked it, it was a 36-minute delay.
Okay. And did I'm sorry, you said, I think, and I now forgot, but you said he provided you the additional set of videos?
Yes.
Okay. And in your capacity as co-officer in charge, did you have a chance to review those additional set of videos?
I did review them.
Okay. And what did you see on that set of videos?
On that set of videos, I observed the same truck, the same white Silverado traveling northbound on Martinsville Road. Then approximately 2 minutes later, the same white Silverado is traveling southbound on Martinsville Road.
And were those videos reduced to a disc?
Yes.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to review those videos prior to testifying today?
I have reviewed them. I haven't recently reviewed them.
Okay, fair enough. Can I direct your attention over to that monitor then? And for the record, this is people's proposed exhibit 8. I believe. Yes, people's proposed exhibit 8. It's a disc containing 2 files. With the court's permission, I'll continue to lay the proper foundation prior to offering to admit into evidence. All right, Detective Saladin, can you see from where you are?
Yes.
I'll move
yes.
out of your way. But
Okay, yes, I can.
I clicked on the second file on the disc that ends in the word coming. I'm playing a portion of it now. I'm going to stop it at about 12 seconds. Detective Saladin, is this the same video that you reviewed?
Yes, I reviewed this video.
And is this video a fair and accurate copy of what you received from Sergeant Belowski by the Brown House?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, Judge, I would move to admit people's proposed exhibit into evidence number 8 as people's exhibit 8.
No objection for exam purposes.
She'll be admitted for exam purposes.
May I publish?
Yes, please.
I'm resuming the play at 12 seconds. Sorry, something's happening.
I think you closed it.
Okay, I've restarted it since it stopped before, so we're starting again at 0 seconds and letting it play. Sorry, Judge, something has happened with the disc. It all of a sudden stopped playing and went into a gray screen, just for the record, so I'm going to restart it again. I'm going to stop this file here. Detective Saladin, were you able to observe that video?
Yes.
Is that the truck that you described?
Yes.
And the timestamp on that video was roughly what?
On that video, if it was the same as the other ones, it would be,
No, I'm asking what it was on this video.
I'm not certain on what it was on that video.
Like if the video says 12:30 p.m.
If that's what the video says, yes.
Okay. And there was a second part that you observed, is that correct?
That's correct.
And just for the record, I'm clicking on the second file with the last word of leaving. Sorry, Judge, every time the disc reboots, it goes to a gray screen before it plays. So I'm gonna reopen the file. I'm gonna fast forward, if that's okay with everybody, to 32 seconds in. I'm gonna stop it. Timestamp ending in 58. All right, Detective Saladin, was that the video that you described of the truck leaving or going southbound?
Yes,
Okay, and these were the additional videos that you received, is that correct?
I believe so.
Judge, may I pass up Exhibit 8?
Yes, thank you.
What else did you do in terms of investigation in this case?
I assisted on interviews and there was a time I went to the medical examiner's office. Traveled to,
Where did you travel to?
I was gonna say Bay City.
Okay, why did you travel to Bay City?
Well, that's where we believed that Bailey was gonna be located.
Okay, and is that based on information that you had received in the course of the investigation?
Yes,
Did that information come from Joseph Sosha?
yes.
Okay. And so when you traveled to Bay City, what did you do when you got there?
When we got to Bay City, we went to the sheriff's department, I believe, and we met with Joe Sosha. Interviewed Joe Sosha.
At some point in time, did you receive information about whether Bay City had recovered a truck?
Yes,
And was that the truck that was associated with Raymond Bailey?
yes,
And did you participate, or did you receive reports of that truck being impounded?
yes.
What kind of truck was it?
2016 Chevrolet Silverado, white in color.
Okay. And was that truck turned over to Sumter by the recovering agency, Sumter PD?
I don't believe it was turned over to us. They kept custody of the vehicle.
Okay, did it become evidence in this investigation?
Yes,
Okay. And to your knowledge as co-officer in charge, was the Michigan State Police asked to do an examination of that truck?
yes, I contacted Bridgeport, the Michigan State Police Lab in Bridgeport, and requested that they check the truck.
Okay. Did you observe the truck?
I did.
Okay, tell me about that.
It was a white Chevrolet Silverado.
Where,
and
okay, let me back up. Where did you observe it?
We went to it was the tow yard that the impounding department used.
Okay. And do you know where the truck had previously been prior to its arrival at the impound yard?
I don't know the exact coordinates, but it was parked at an Applebee's and taken into custody.
Okay. And so now getting back to when you're observing it in the impound yard, what did you note about the truck?
It was a white Chevrolet Silverado that had a cap on the back.
Did you look inside of it?
Yes.
Okay. What did you find inside of it?
Well, prior to looking inside of it, by just looking in the windows, you could see a small handgun in the area of in the driver's seat.
Okay. Are you familiar with guns?
I like to think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Were you able, based on your familiarity with guns, and have you been trained on how to use firearms in the course of your job as a police officer?
Yes.
Based on your training and experience and your own personal knowledge, were you able to tell anything about the type of caliber that gun was that was in the truck?
To be without handling it, the only thing I could tell is that it was a small caliber handgun.
Fair enough. What other observations did you make?
The truck was unlocked to view if there was any other evidence that was there, mainly for officer safety, because it was expected that there was another firearm. So we looked to see.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you. Why did you expect that there would be another firearm?
While on the original scene, the Martinsville Road address, there was an extended magazine that was left behind, and there were multiple shell casings that would belong to a .45 caliber handgun. And looking at the small gun, like I said, I couldn't tell you exactly what caliber it was, but I could tell it wasn't a .45 caliber because that's much larger. So we looked around in the truck, not touching anything, just to see if there was another handgun in plain sight so that we could update any officers in the area looking for Bailey, that if he did or did not have a handgun with him.
Okay, and so at this point in time, just to be clear, Mr. Bailey was not in custody?
Correct.
Okay, so when would this have been, what date and what time would this have been that you were viewing the truck in the impound yard?
This was, I can't say exactly, but it was either late Saturday the 15th or early Sunday the 16th.
Okay. And were you able to locate, based on plain sight, that .45 caliber?
No.
Okay. Was a search warrant drafted to search the truck?
Yes.
And was that search warrant approved?
Yes.
And throughout, did you participate in the search?
No, I did not.
Did you receive reports about what was located in the truck?
Yes, I did.
And to your knowledge, as co-officer in charge, was there another firearm located in the truck?
Yes, there was.
What caliber was that firearm?
It was a .45 caliber.
Did there come a point in time where you became aware that Mr. Bailey was arrested?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I believe on the evening of August 16th, on Sunday, we had gotten word that Bailey had turned himself in to Bay County Sheriff's, I believe, and Sergeant Belowski went to meet with the United States Marshals to transport him back to Sumter Township.
And to your knowledge, was he transported back to Sumter Township?
Yes.
And did there come a point in time where you and Detective Toth spoke to Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, by that time, it was August 17th, and Bailey was brought into Detective Lieutenant Toth's office. Bailey reported that, well, he was first advised of all of his constitutional rights.
I'm going to stop you for a second. Were you the one that was doing the talking?
No, I was not.
Where were you? Were you in the same room?
Yes.
And where were you located in the room?
How the area is set up is that there's a small bench that Bailey was seated on, and then there's a chair kind of next to the bench that Detective Lieutenant Toth conducted the interview from, and then there's also a desk, and I was right behind the desk.
Okay. And so did you have a chance to hear and observe everything that happened during the course of that conversation?
Yes.
And were you present when Detective Toth read Mr. Bailey any Miranda warnings?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and did Detective Toth read each and every Miranda warning to Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
And how did he do that?
We have a constitutional rights form that lists all your rights, and Detective Lieutenant Toth read each one and asked Bailey if he wanted to sign initial for them, which he declined to, but he verbally acknowledged that he was aware of all of his rights and didn't have any questions.
Do you recall how he verbally acknowledged it?
For the actual rights, I do believe he said that he understands. And at one point he said he's aware of all of his rights and we didn't need to read them to him, but he continued, read them out to him.
And in the course of the conversation, what did, I'm sorry, let me go back. Michael, after Detective Toth read Mr. Bailey his Miranda warnings, did Detective Toth speak to him about the investigation and about what had occurred on August 15th at the 24914 Martinsville Road address?
Yes.
Okay, and what did Mr. Bailey say?
There was a lot of statements that were made. Bailey began by stating that he and Tanner had been arguing the night before, which would have been August 14th, and they were arguing about the house, the Martinsville Road address, and the selling of the house. Bailey advised that he believed that Tanner was stringing Bailey along, and on.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna object because the officer appears he's gonna just give a summary of what he recalls of various parts of the conversation that was, well over an hour. So I guess I'm objecting to the form of the question too. She should be asking questions and getting answers as opposed to allowing him to give a summary.
So
Unless
less
he's gonna give
narrative,
a
more.
summary of the entire conversation for the whole 1 hour.
I can break it up. I was just kind of waiting for a verbal pause before I asked a follow-up question. So, Mr. Bailey represented to you that they had been fighting the night before?
Yes.
Okay. And did he tell you what he did based on that?
Well, the next morning, Saturday the 15th, he said that he called Tanner.
Okay.
Because Tanner was supposed to be signing papers regarding the house.
Okay. And what did he tell you after that?
He said that he called her but had already been advised by the realtor that there had been no contact with Tanner. And at that point, I believe he said that he just lost it.
He can't testify about what he believes.
Yeah.
He either knows or he doesn't know.
I
Objection
agree.
sustained.
Well, I don't remember word for word everything that was said, and I don't want to
That's fine.
confabulate something.
That's fine. We are only asking you to testify about what you know, and you started to qualify your own sentence with "I believe." So, just tell me about what you know.
So without watching the video for word for word confession, Bailey stated that
Objection,
He-
Your Honor, to the characterization of this as a confession.
Yep, I agree with that. Just answer the question if you can, okay? If you can't, ask me to rephrase, or if you need it to be phrased differently, that's fine.
Bailey stated that he was arguing with Tanner. Bailey stated that he just lost it when he found out that Tanner was not responding to the realtor.
Did he advise you, did he tell you that he remembered driving his truck?
Bailey was asked if Bailey went over to the Martinsville Road address, and Bailey said yes. Bailey was asked what he drove over to the Martinsville Road address, and Bailey said the truck.
Okay. And did he tell you that he'd been walking around in circles for the last 2 days?
Yes,
Did he repeat multiple times he didn't remember what happened?
yes.
Did he tell you that did he tell you whether or not he had any firearms when he went over to that address?
Bailey was asked how his guns got to the residence, and Bailey said that his guns were always in his truck. Bailey was asked if his guns were on him when he got to the house, and he said no, but stated his little gun was in his back pocket.
Okay. Did he tell you about a bag that he kept in his truck?
Yes,
Did he describe that bag for you?
he talked about a camouflage bag that he kept in his truck that would contain his .45 caliber handgun, his Glock 45, and he also had 2 extended magazines and 2 normal magazines in the bag.
Okay. And did he tell you that those guns would be located in his truck?
I don't recall if he said they were in his truck or not.
Did he tell you that it's just all bad in reference to the situation?
Bailey stated that in the timeline of events that he could remember that everything was bad.
Okay. Did he describe at all what happened? So did he tell you that he went to the address at 24914 Martinsville Road on August 15th?
Yes.
Okay. Did he eventually at any point describe what happened in the house to any degree?
Bailey was asked what happened upon Bailey's arrival to the house, and Bailey said that he began arguing with Tanner and Grupa, Tanner's sister, and then he was attacked by 2 big bastards. Bailey reported
I'm
that.
gonna stop you for a second. Did you come to find out later what the relationship was between Laura and those 2 men?
The 2 men were Neil and Forrest Sampson, and they were cousins of Laura and Sarah.
And Laura and Sarah are sisters, is that right?
Yes.
And so Bailey said, Bailey was describing what happened in the house. What else did he tell you?
Well, he said that he was attacked, and then he said he remembered fighting with one of them down the hallway in the house.
Did he use any terminology to describe what happened in the hallway?
Not at that moment.
At a different moment?
At a different moment, he stated that things escalated and shit got out of hand, and then I know that Bailey testified and stated that the 2 males were continuing to say the same stuff and reference telling Bailey that the house was theirs and it wasn't Bailey's anymore, and that Tanner and Grupa continued to laugh. Bailey then stated shit then got violent.
Okay. Did he ever deny being at the scene of the murders?
No, he did not. There was a point where Detective Lieutenant Toth was advising that the Michigan State Police had come to the scene and processed it for evidence, DNA and fingerprints and stuff like that.
And was Bailey asked if he knew who those fingerprints and DNA would come back to?
Yes, he advised his DNA would be there, and that he wasn't denying that he was there. He reported that he was there.
Okay.
And then he reported that his DNA would be on the guns and the magazines. And when asked when the ballistics were done, who the ballistics would show the guns were, he advised they would be to his guns.
Okay. And is it true this statement lasts about an hour?
I believe hour, 7 minutes.
Okay. And was this occurring, do you recall what time of day this occurred?
I believe it was approximately 12:40 a.m., so almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
And in addition to speaking to Mr. Bailey, so after that, he was formally arrested, is that correct? Or formally, he was at that point formerly in custody?
Yes.
In relation to homicides, okay. Did there come a point in time, several months later, where you received some information about some clothing that was recovered up in Bay City.
Yes,
Okay, and was that reported to you by a different police department?
that would have came from the Michigan State Police in Bridgeport, the lab in Bridgeport.
Did you receive it in your capacity as co-officer in charge reports from like a police agency about clothing, a cell phone, a credit card that were recovered up in the area?
Yes, we, a destroyed cell phone, and I believe there was a CPL that was recovered that belonged to Bailey as well.
Okay. And do you remember just generally where those items were recovered?
I don't.
Okay. Do you recall if they were recovered in the same area that you were present in up near Bay City by the Applebee's that you talked?
Yes, they were
about?
recovered in Bay City in the area where the truck would have been left.
And this would have been, did you receive those reports in sometime approximately November of 2020?
I can't say for certain when the reports were sent out.
Okay. It was fair to say it was months after August.
It's fair to say.
And it was Raymond Bailey's CPL?
Yes.
Okay, and you said there was a destroyed cell phone?
Yes.
Okay, did you investigate that cell phone?
I observed the cell phone, yes.
Okay. And did you take affirmative steps to investigate who that cell phone belonged to? And, or at least attempt to?
I did not.
Okay, did somebody else?
I'm not certain.
Okay. And the CPL was collected with that cell phone?
Yes.
Was there a credit card that was also, or some type of card that was also recovered from that same area with those other items?
I can't say for certain, but I believe there's more than
Objection, Your Honor,
one
what he
card.
believes, he either knows or he doesn't know.
Agreed.
Objection sustained.
Okay. Nothing else.
Ms. Woodside?
The items that you said that you got information of being recovered by some other agency, where exactly were they recovered from? Do you know?
No, I said I wasn't certain, but I do, it was in the area of where the Bailey's pickup truck was
Okay, when you say in the area on the street,
I'm not certain.
okay, so you have no idea where they were. They could have just been laying outside the truck. Is that right?
Well, I have an idea, but
Where were they?
I don't know for sure. It'd be,
Okay.
I believe.
Is it in the report exactly, precisely where?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You sat and observed this interview, is that right?
Yes.
How many times do you recall my client saying the word lawyer?
I think he maybe talked about getting a lawyer twice.
Twice?
I think so, yeah.
How many times do you remember hearing him say the word lawyer?
He talked about his lawyer, and he was asked if he wanted to call his lawyer.
Yeah, but my question is, how many times do you recall him saying the word lawyer?
Judge asked and
I don't
answered
know,
first.
but I said
let
two.
The judge said, hold on.
Sorry.
Objecting, it's asked and answered. He testified previously that it was 2. Ms. Woodside pressed him. He gave the answer that he gave. It's been asked, and he answered to the best of his ability.
And I believe he then started to say something else about another time before the prosecutor interrupted him. I can rephrase the question. Let me rephrase the question. Did my client say the word lawyer more than 2 times?
Yes.
Okay. When he said the word lawyer, the first time that you have a recollection, Detective Toth continued to talk to him though. Is that right?
Well, Detective Lieutenant Toth advised him that it
Sir,
was,
that's a yes or no. Did he continue to talk to him after the first time he said the word lawyer?
After he said the word lawyer, yes.
Okay. The detective lieutenant, is it lieutenant detective?
Detective Lieutenant.
Detective lieutenant, I'm trying to get the right, say it right.
Yeah.
It's
It
detective.
doesn't offend me.
Okay, the detective lieutenant continued to talk to Mr. Bailey after the second time that Mr. Bailey mentioned the word lawyer.
After the second time, Bailey began speaking again, and Detective advised him that he had invoked his right to talk to an attorney. And Bailey said he's aware, and anything that Bailey says, we can use.
Okay. So the answer to my question is yes?
Correct, yes.
Okay. What about the third time?
Well, the third time was when we were talking about who his lawyer was.
Okay,
So yes,
okay. Fourth time?
I don't recall a fourth time.
Now, you said, was the vehicle opened by the Michigan State Police?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and that was after you had gotten the warrant? Just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
After the Michigan State Police began their investigation after the warrant was obtained.
Okay. Are you the person, the applicant on the warrant?
I don't think so.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I don't remember doing that one.
Okay. You were also present when Mr. Social was interviewed
Yes,
in Bay City?
yes.
Were you present when he was interviewed any other time?
When
Mr. Social?
Mr. Sosha was interviewed?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Can you redirect?
Yes, briefly. Ms. Woodside asked you about when the defendant said the word lawyer. What context did he say that in?
Exact words, I'm not sure.
Do you remember, did he say, I want to speak to my lawyer?
No.
Do you recall him saying, I should probably talk to a lawyer or something to that effect?
Yes.
Did he ever make an affirmative, the first time he mentioned it, did he ever make an affirmative assertion that he wants to talk to his lawyer?
No.
Okay. Did he continue to talk after he made that equivocal statement about wanting to talk to, I should probably talk to a lawyer? Did he continue to talk?
To the characterization, it's equivocal. What's equivocal about the word probably? It's not equivocal.
It's definitionally, probably is definitionally equivocal. I can ask it a different way.
That'd be appreciated, thank you.
After he said he probably wants to talk to a lawyer, or probably, no, I think probably should talk to a lawyer, or something to that effect. Did Mr. Bailey continue to talk to Detective Toth?
Yes.
Okay. And, sorry. Did Detective Toth, after Mr. Bailey said, I should probably talk to a lawyer, did Detective Toth end up referencing that Mr. Bailey had only said probably?
Yes.
And did Mr. Bailey continue to talk after that?
Yes.
Okay, and did he continue to talk without Detective Toth initiating questions?
Yes.
Okay. And then it was the second context where, the second time that Ms. Woodside asked, is that when he more firmly asserted that he needed to talk to a lawyer?
Yes.
And after that, did Detective Toth ask any other questions about the subject of the case?
I don't know.
Did Mr. Bailey continue to talk himself without being asked any questions after he made an assertion that he wanted to talk to his attorney?
Yes, he did.
And did Detective Toth at that point in time tell him that he had invoked his right to an attorney or something to that effect, that he didn't have to keep talking?
Yes.
And did Mr. Bailey at that point in time say that he was aware of his rights and that whatever he said, you, meaning the police officers, could use against him?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing else.
You never participated in the interview yourself, is that right?
What was that?
You never actually talked in the interview.
I think I got him a cup of water at one point and said, here's a cup of water. But other than that, actually interview purposes, no.
Okay. This is not the first type of interview you've been a part of, correct?
I've been a part of many interviews.
Hundreds of interviews, is that right?
Sure.
And it's not the first time you've heard someone say they probably should talk to a lawyer either, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. And when my client says he probably should talk to a lawyer, you recall the next thing he says is, I don't know what to say.
I don't know for sure, word for word, what was said.
Do you recall him saying, I don't want to say the wrong thing?
I do recall him saying that.
Do you recall him saying, I'm so confused?
Yes.
I haven't slept or eaten.
Judge, I'm gonna object because it's for a couple reasons. One, it's improper impeachment. Two, Ms. Woodside is testifying from the statement herself without asking the witness what he remembers. So the proper thing to do would then be to refresh his recollection as opposed to impeaching him with questions. Secondarily, it's hearsay if Ms. Woodside is asking about what Mr. Bailey told Detective Saligen, because Mr. Bailey is not Ms. Woodside's party opponent. So multiple objections.
Your Honor, the prosecutor asked, I'm simply following up. And we don't have right now the video itself played before the court. But under the rule of completeness, if we're going to ask about the statement, I'm also allowed to ask questions about what was said in the statement as well. Because this is what they're using for the statement.
I'm gonna overrule your objection.
So you do recall my client indicating that he was so confused. Is that right?
Something along those lines, yes.
And do you recall my client indicated, I haven't slept or eaten?
Something along those lines, yes.
Okay. And then you recall Sergeant Detective Toe talking about what happens in this particular situation. You can tell us what happened or not.
Something along those lines, yes.
Okay, and you recall Detective Sergeant Toe continuing to talk to my client at that point, don't you?
Without watching the video, I can't tell you exactly the order of what you're asking and if that was right after that or not.
Okay, no further questions.
Judge, may I have one moment?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, that way I can ask them more questions. Okay.
All right. Are you gonna? Judge, may we approach briefly?
Sure.
Yes, I agree.
My question is, I got a whole lot of questions about 15 pages of questions.
Well,
So we'll be here. It's okay, ready? Oh, nothing else to do.
So then,
motion. I know, that's what I just. Concentrated, if I'm thinking through the logistics of the next. Thank you. Had a sidebar with the attorneys in this matter, and there is going to be a video played, a video of the interview that's been referenced before, because we are still at the preliminary exam stage, and so as not to taint any future witnesses, we will not be running the video on YouTube. The court's going to take a brief recess for the technology to be set up and for people to stretch their legs before we sit for the hour video. Anything else on behalf of the people?
Judge, just that I believe that there's a stipulation to, for foundational purposes, to its admission, and I have it pre-marked as people's proposed exhibit 14, so I move to admit it.
I have no objection for exam purposes only, Your Honor, and I would also ask that the video not be played to the public at the preliminary examination.
Thank you. People's proposed 14 will be admitted for exam purposes only. As previously indicated, we will cease to run these proceedings on YouTube during the playing of the interview video. Anything else before we take a brief recess?
Not from the people, thank you.
Thank you.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. It's 1:25, let's say back at 1:30, please.